Peace and love, y'all. It's your brother A.D.V.I.S.S. And we are here with another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays, Season 2, Episode 38. I'm not going to even try the fingers this time. But, as we usually do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw in the comments the topics for today, as well as in the background, I'm going to throw up our show logo. And as I'm doing all of that, please, once y'all come in, let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling, and what's the word. Also, shouts out to all those that will be present, as well as those who will be watching this later, whether on Instagram or YouTube. If you're on YouTube, go and subscribe to your boy at A.D.V.I.S.S Speaks, and don't forget to like, comment, share, and hit the notification bell for more videos that will be coming and dropping on there. So please go and support, and I appreciate you and your time. And as we are waiting, y'all, let me also tap in about, we got a lot going on this week in strength in particular. So be on the lookout for more announcements, as well as just giving y'all a heads up too. We are wrapping up What's the Word Wednesdays this season. We have 2 more episodes, so once we reach episode 40, that will be it for this season, and we'll be taking a 1 to 1.5 month break to get re-energized, as well as get things ready to go for the 3rd season. But with that, what's going on, Kunin? Good to see you in here. Peace and love, brother. What's the word? And with that too, for today's episode, the topics that we're going to be getting into are as follows. 1, we're going to be doing the news section, so the news portion, we'll be talking about a few things in the news. 2nd, we'll get into talking about self-fulfilling prophecies, as well as just the prophecy itself. And lastly, we're going to talk about why misery loves company. That's another wise saying I've heard before, and we're going to break it down and talk about it. But yeah, with that, let's wait, get some more people to come in as I'm looking in here. Yes, since you sent that to me, Kunin, I have found it there as you sent it to me on NPR, and I am going to read a little bit about it. I've heard of bell hooks, but I do not know much of bell hooks. But yes, that is going to be one of the news reports. And then if y'all have any too, please make sure you share them, put them down in the comments. I appreciate y'all's participation, as well as y'all enthusiasm when sharing. So thank you so much. Even all y'all that even watch this later and y'all share in the comments on YouTube and Instagram. Appreciate y'all. Much love to y'all too. I see y'all. Even though I'm on the other side of the phone, I see y'all. But with that, as this song is wrapping up, we're going to jump into saying the short song, or I should say singing the show song, and then we'll get into this news. Right. Once again, if you don't know it, soon you'll know it and sing along. If not, it's all good. Appreciate you being here. Doom. So people always walking around wondering, asking what's going on. So what you tell them? It's like this. What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? You tell them like, what's the word? What's the word? What you heard? We gotta know, yeah, what's the word? Peace and love, y'all. Once again, it's your brother A.D.V.I.S.S, and we are back with another episode of What's the Word Wednesday, Season 2, Episode 38. Thank y'all for coming through for another episode, as well as thank y'all for giving of your time and your support to this content, as well as to this platform, because without y'all, this will not continue itself. I could do it, but I could look like a fool doing it. So thank y'all for coming in and sharing your time. With that too, as y'all are coming in, let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling, and what's the Word. Shouts out to Kunin that's already up in here, as well as more people that will be coming through, as well as y'all that I see y'all in the back over there later on Instagram and YouTube. I see y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you. Now, again, for today's episode, we're going to be getting into current events, which I'm going to be doing right now. Then we're going to talk about self-fulfilling prophecy, or as well as prophecies. And then lastly, we're going to talk about why misery loves company. But with that, y'all, let me look at these comments, and then we're going to start with the news portion. If y'all have any news, please throw them in the comments and share them. Again, appreciate you so much for your participation. All right. And yes, I like to use my hands to talk. So if you see me do this a lot, it's my motions, how I talk. Right. So yeah, there's also been new revelations regarding Trump's January 6th coup attempt. Apparently, there was even a whole PowerPoint presentation on how to do it. Interesting. Wow. Tanish, good to see you in here. Peace and love. And what's the word? Miss India won Miss Universe, and another Indian woman, Professor Gupta, became the first Indian woman to win the prestigious Ramanujan Prize in Mathematics. I may have said that wrong, completely wrong, but thank you for sharing that, and congratulations to all of those victories right there. But with that, y'all, let's get into these current events. So, first article I have comes from MSN, but specifically Associated Press, and the headline reads, Health worker vaccine mandate blocked in half the states. Again, Associated Press, health worker vaccine mandate blocked in half the states. So as we usually do, y'all, usually 2 to 3 paragraphs and we're out. So let's get it. Article reads, a federal appeals court panel on Wednesday lifted a nationwide ban against President Joe Biden's vaccine mandate for health workers, instead blocking the requirement in only certain states and creating the potential for patchwork enforcement across the country. The decision by the New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Council or Court of Appeals, I'm over here just reading it completely different because I'm trying to switch in between stuff, kept a preliminary injunction in place for 14 states that collectively sued in federal court in Louisiana. It altered a November 30th ruling by the U.S. District Judge Terry Doughty, who originally applied his order nationwide. A separate preliminary injunction on appeal before the Louisiana, or I should say, St. Louis-based 8th U.S. Circuit of Courts of Appeals applies to 10 additional states. That means the vaccine requirement for Medicare and Medicaid providers is blocked by courts in about almost half states, but not in the other half. So there's a whole group of stuff going on with this, basically saying that this mandate of all the healthcare workers that are needing to get the shot, as well as for those who have more than 100 plus folks, that is also what this is going on with. I may be completely wrong, but yeah, again, there's been another ban on this vaccine mandate in some places, and in other places there is not. Shots out to West Coast Ninja in the building. Peace and love to you, brother, man. What's the word? Good to see you up in here. And if y'all don't know, please go follow my brother West Coast Ninja on Instagram, as well as he streams on Twitch. And this dude is very hilarious, very interactive, as well as very supportive. So please go get y'all some love over there too on Twitch. TV.com/West Coast Ninja as well. Right. Let me see. Y'all going all up in here on this stuff in the news. So let me see. Y'all got, what else y'all got? It says Supreme Court upheld Texas anti-abortion. I saw that vigilante law for now. In response, California is creating a similar vigilante anti-gun law, especially against ghost guns and manufacturers. You gotta explain that one to me. Ghost guns? Like, when I think of ghost guns, I think of Ghost in the Shell, but like the anime. But yeah, let me know that. I say I hope you're doing well tonight. Love popping in here. Hey, brother, you're always welcome. This is a community for y'all, man. It's built around not only just what we speak about, but the interaction. So all of y'all are part of the community. So thank you. But yeah, so that was this article, which basically is talking about the health worker vaccine mandate and how it's blocked in half the states. Not all, but half. And this was, again, from Associated Press. Now, y'all are giving me a lot of news in the comments, so I really appreciate that. So as that is going on, I have another quick news update with another article. So again, for those, I keep on forgetting to say, for those that are coming in, if you are not really interested in knowing about what's going on with the news, which I would say, please also do your own watching and being informed about the news, because it's important. But this is the news section, so I'll talk about news for about 20-30 minutes, and then later on in the stream we start to talk about the different topics. So if you want to check out now, come back later, you're more than welcome to. If not, on YouTube, Instagram, wherever else, you can fast forward and then find the spots you want to hear. Right. The next article I got here comes from MSN, and specifically from Health. And the headline reads, Cornell University shuts down campus due to COVID breakout despite vaccine mandate. Here's why. Since December 7th, the school has reported 930 new cases of COVID, and it's believed that a significant number of those cases are due to the Omicron variant. So for those going to Cornell University, which, if I'm correct, and y'all, somebody can end up stating it wrong for me too, is Cornell University is specifically where again? That's what I thought it was in New York. So Cornell University in New York University. So don't be surprised that some of these schools start I'm not saying only closing down, but might also start doing more dual learning again, especially since we're still trying to figure out what the Omicron is and how mild the cases may be, or how transmissible it is. It's saying that it's more, but we will see. I have some more articles we'll keep going through, but yeah, y'all, just wanted to update on that. Cornell University. All right, let me see, y'all going in on here, so let's see. It said ghost guns are untraceable. Oh, thank you. I had it as a thought, but thank you for confirming it. Ghost guns are untraceable, yeah, and unserialized guns sold in parts. You have to assemble it yourself. That's why it's a ghost. Yeah, not once you said it, now I made it said right. Also, Omicron variant reduces Pfizer's vaccine efficacy by 30%. That's what's been said and done, especially after they did run that trial. I did speak on something similar to that last Wednesday, but yeah, they're still trying to figure this all out. But usually, there's data that's shown that all of the vaccines, especially after getting the 2 doses from either Moderna, Pfizer, even the one from Johnson & Johnson, that over time, the efficacy as well as the effectiveness wanes. So it becomes less and less over time. So that's why there's a such thing of having another shot, the booster shot, is to help to boost that effectiveness back up. So that's why they're doing this. And for some of those who are not sure and not privy to that, actually, they're already not reinstating, but there also talks about having a 4th shot already coming, as well as creating new types of vaccines to combat specifically Omicron variant. So we will see. There's more developments happening. So as these months, weeks, don't want to say years go by, we'll see what happens. Right. Let's continue, y'all. The next article I wanted to, because it ran across my timeline, as well as it hit my eye. This is specifically for where I'm from, but I just wanted to share what's going on right now. I've been hearing. So this article comes from MSN, but specifically it says 2urbangirls.com, and the headline reads, 3 people shot in Del Amo, Fashion Center parking lot. For me, that's one of the malls that I would actually go around and go see. And it's actually specifically, it's in Torrance, the city of Torrance. And for me, that's about 20 minutes away. But I wanted to see this because it ran through my headline. So again, 2 paragraphs or 3 and we out. Headline reads, 3 people were injured, 1 critically, in a shooting in a parking lot of the A.D.V.I.S.S Fashion Center in Torrance on Tuesday, December 14th. Torrance police officers were dispatched about 6:30 p.m. to the parking lot of the mall near a BJ's restaurant and brew house. I know specifically that store, that's crazy, and found several shell casings in the area, according to a department spokesperson. Officers conducted an investigation and learned 3 of the 4 suspects approached 3 victims, opened fire, and fled southbound across Carson Street to the mall's A.D.V.I.S.S, where they carjacked a Chevrolet USV and fled. The police learned the 3 shootings victims had been taken to Kaiser South Bay Medical Center prior to their arrival at the scene. Interesting. The victim of the carjacking was not injured. 1 shooting victim was listed in critical condition, while the conditions of the other 2 were unknown, according to police. So, the reason why I wanted to bring that up is, again, these are examples of why you want to make sure that you are up to date, at least with knowing what's going around your immediate environment, your neighborhood, so that you can not only just keep a cautious eye, but just be aware and know what can happen and how to avoid and plan around that. Like I always say towards the end of the show, but this was right here because this is very close to me. And there's been a lot of other mishaps happening even closer in my neighborhood. So this is just a message to y'all, wherever y'all are. Please make sure that you keep yourselves safe and to be aware of your surroundings. Again, please do. Don't go out there unknowingly lollygagging. I'm up head in the clouds. Make sure that you know what's going on. Be observant. Right. Again, that article came from 2urbangirls.com, and the headline read, 3 people shot in the A.D.V.I.S.S Fashion Center parking lot. Interesting, man. Right. We got a few more articles, and then we will get to the next portion of this show. So let me continue. And as that is, please, if y'all have more comments, responses, as well as any reactions or responses to these articles, please put them in the comments as well too. All right, so next article comes from BGR, and the headline reads, 5 nationwide grocery shortages that you need to know about. Yes, y'all. So make sure y'all getting your canned foods. Make sure y'all are stocking up on certain foods. Not like go crazy, like grabbing 20, 40, 50 different cans of foods at a time. But as time you go out to go get food, make sure you stock just a little bit more if you got the extra cash to do so. Because there's been food shortages happening. Probably some of your favorite restaurants or your favorite food spots may have not had certain food menu or choices on the menu. And let's see the reason why for these grocery shortages. Now, again, 2 paragraphs and 3 paragraphs will be out. Article reads, it's one of the most sporadic, routine activities that millions of Americans engage in on what is like a weekly basis. Nevertheless, trips to the grocery store these days have, like always, every aspect of modern life felt and continue to feel the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and specifically all the supply shortages stemming from the pandemic's disruption to all the normal patterns of commerce in the U.S. Let's see. To be sure, this is some relative, depending in large parts on where you live and what is that you're shopping for. But COVID impacting your shopping experience can include everything for longer lines as well as shortages in popular items, the distribution of which is often tangled up in the nation's snarl supply chain infrastructure. Again, having the issues with not having enough space, as well as having ships still out at sea, trying to offboard food processes and different products, but not having the room or the workforce to do so, which is causing this shortage and a huge backup. But I'm looking, they have different links for different chain supplies. So this is more so just a overall letting you know where places you can check to see where there are shortages going on. So look like people there's taking in an account what's happening. But I can definitely tell you there's shortages on different meats, specifically fish, steaks, your red meats. Honestly, yeah, all types of meat and poultry, which exactly, brother, inflation has been insane with food. Yes, especially if you're going to get meats, the inflation on that went up 10% for a meat. For at least where I would go, or my mom usually would go, and she gets her steaks. I don't eat red meat, so that's not a thing for me. But she would go get a steak and find a steak that would normally be about roughly around $10, $12. Now it's almost hitting between 16, going almost upwards of $20, and that's for just one. Now, along with that, other necessities, I haven't seen shortages in the toilet paper and stuff of that sort. But again, this article in particular is just offshooting you other places to check, so then you know what things are having shortages. But with that, y'all, please make sure, again, when you do go shopping and then you do go get the foods and stuff that you need, please, just bit by bit, get you some cans, get you some foods that are non-perishable, that you can hold on for a while, so that you'll have something that inevitably, when you try to go to the market, it may not be there anymore. So again, just prepare yourself slowly and surely, as well as if you do not have a first aid kit or an emergency kit, start building that now. Please do. You never know when something could happen. Yes. But with that, what's going on? The brother Sabi Smooth in the building. One of the smoothest brothers I know. The booth is on fire, y'all. The peace and love, brother, man. What's the word? What's the word? Brian said, Princeton and Cornell have shut down in-person final exams and asked students to go home. Several other colleges, too, because of... Thank you. This, again, it was very foreseeable after we see these cycles of stuff going. And if anyone, also, again, I said this last time, if y'all want to know about what other variants are out there or are prevalent or being watched, go to the World Health Organization website as well as the CDC website and go in and you type in variants of concern or just different types of variants for COVID. And they'll pull up and you'll see a list. And you'll get to see what is being watched, what is a concern, what is actually happening right now. So you would see there's so many different names that are being watched. So keep up to date with that. This next article is a video, but I'm not going to show the video just for time's sake. But basically, the article comes from CBS News, and the headline reads, White House urges boosters to combat Omicron. So, again, I'm going to just read the short summary they have and then just give a small take, and we'll continue on. With the coronavirus cases on the rise across the country, some colleges are reinstating COVID-19 protocols and even closing their campuses. Exactly. Look it. Already beat it to it. Thank you, Kunin. Thank you, everybody. The Delta variant remains the dominant strand, representing about 90%, 96% of the cases across the country. And then the news anchor is the one who's on there is talking more about it. So we can deduce that if 96% is still coming from Delta, right now 4% is from Omicron, because we haven't heard about Alpha anymore. We haven't heard from about Beta, haven't heard from about Mu, because Mu was one of the other variants that were on the rise. So exactly what's going on here. So now they are promoting boosters, and like I spoke about before, there's only one booster. We still haven't had a lot of folks get the shots, as well as other countries even get their even first doses of shots. And now we're rolling out to make sure we get these boosters. On top of, there is another, maybe in the running of like next 6 to 12 months, a fourth shot, another booster. So we'll see what's going on, y'all. We'll see. But yeah, again, that article came from CBS News, and the headline read, White House urges boosters to combat Omicron. Right. I know earlier some of the folks was talking about a lot of the different weather changes or tornadoes happening all over the place. So I have a few, but I forgot the other different states that have been getting hit very hard with that. But I'm going to talk about 2 different places that have. And then got the last article speaking on about bell hooks. But let me see what y'all got in these comments. Boom. It says, bro, that intro was smooth. Hey, man, I've been working on it, man. Shoot. Hopefully over time it's gotten better and better. So, of course, man, always for you, brothers. Always love here. All right. Federal Reserve announced it may increase interest rates 3 times in 2022 to curb inflation. Of course, the Fed is doing all of that. Of course, they would do that. Shouts out to the brother Freddie the Wizard in the building. Peace and love, brother, man. What's the word? What's the word? Good to see you in here. And if y'all don't know either, too, please go follow the brother Freddie the Wizard. This dude is a dope MC as well as a dope individual. Throws on shows for any artist that is there around in California, specifically in, of course, Southern California, the OC area. Please tap in. Brother's got some events coming and going on, so tap in. Right. It says, Chauvin pleads guilty. I just saw that article as well, too. There's just too much news I didn't want to start talking about, but hey, it happens. It says Chauvin pleads guilty in federal court to violating George Floyd's civil rights. Yes, I saw that. This may reduce his sentence from life to 300 days or 20 years. 300 days? Or 20 years from life? Yeah, y'all can comment on that. I'm a leave that be, but thank you for sharing that. I did see it, I just didn't want to tap in with it. But yes, said Omicron sounds like a Decepticon, bro. It does. I know it's look at how it's spelled. Is Omicron like Ami? Like as in, if you ever seen the show as a kid, Puffy Ami Yumi. Omni as in OMI, but it sounds like omni to me, like is in omnipresent, omniscient, like it's everywhere. It would make sense. But yeah, man, it sounds like a Decepticon, bro. It may be deceiving some of us. I don't know. And again, Instagram, YouTube, don't get on me about that. These are articles coming from NPR, CNN, MSN. So that's all them. Okay? That's all them. That's not me. It's all them. All right. Just have to get that straight. Right. Let's go ahead these last 3 articles, and then we will get on with the topics because I want to hear y'all's perspectives on these topics. All right. So, next article comes from CNN, and the headline reads, Typhoon Rai, or Ray, rapidly strengthens as it nears the Philippines. So, for all the folks out in the Philippines, please be careful as well as keep yourself safe during this stormy and weathery season. There's so much going on. Mother Nature is attacking back at what is happening. So, man, so much. Right. 2 paragraphs and we out. So, headline reads, Typhoon Ray, or Rai, is rapidly strengthening east of the southern Philippines and may be on the verge of becoming a super typhoon. It's just a typhoon, but this is a super typhoon. I'm not too sure. The storm is on track to slam the southern and central portions of the country Thursday. Ray has sustained winds up to 250 kilometers per hour, which is 130 miles per hour for us in the U.S., making it the equivalent of a Category 4 hurricane on the Saffron-Simpson hurricane wind scale. So that's one lower than category 5, which honestly, I don't know. Look, I'm not very savvy when it comes to meteorologists and knowing all of this, but that storm sounds wild. Like, that's all I have to say. There's pictures of how it's moving across here. I'm not gonna just show for the sake of that, but if y'all want to go and look this stuff up and also just send out, good wishes to the folks out in the Philippines, please do, because I know we've also had our hits out here in the U.S. as well too. Again, Mother Nature's going in. Yes. So let's see. That's it. That's all I got for this. I'm not gonna go anymore. But again, article comes from CNN. Headline: Typhoon Rai rapidly strengthens as it nears the Philippines. All right. Now another one. As I'm seeing y'all going in real quick, he said, definitely not an Autobot. Yep. Sorry, I meant 300 months. Okay, I was about to say, I was like, 300 days? How you gonna go from life then to just 20 years or 300 days? I'm like, yo, that is a very expansive timeline. Like, yo, that's crazy. Right. Next article comes from NPR. Headline reads: extreme winds, dust storms, and warm temperatures are hitting much of the Midwest. So all my Midwest folks and peoples out there, please, again, stay alert as well as keep yourself safe during the stormy season going on. Is also the holiday season for those who do celebrate, and for those who don't, still keep that in mind. Now again, 3 paragraphs and we out. Headline reads: the Midwest is experiencing a slew of alarming weather events that have downed trees, caused road closures, destroyed buildings, and left more than 100,000 residents without power. Life-threatening weather conditions, including extreme winds with a high threat of tornadoes and record-breaking temperatures, swept across the entire region, from Mexico to Canada's borders. And powerful winds and dust storms are reported in Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, according to the National Weather Service. National Weather Service warned the swath of more than 60 miles per hour winds with embedding gusts of more than 80 miles per hour winds from New Mexico to Michigan. Again, y'all, please keep yourself safe while it's going on out there. Especially you folks in Kansas City. I'm seeing there's updates all right here, but I'm not going to read mostly all of there. But again, we got a lot of weather conditions and mishaps happening around in the U.S. as well as around the world. So send out those vibes around everywhere, because again, we're all connected. As much as you want to maybe think that we're not, we're definitely all connected. We all are affected in some way, shape, and form. But with that, y'all, last article for y'all, and then we can move to the topics. And I appreciate y'all being locked in and tuned in with me. I'm grateful, as well as thank y'all for sharing. Next, and the last article we have comes from NPR. And the headline reads: trailblazing feminist author, critic, and activist Bell Hooks has passed on at the age 69. So again, we're going to do 3 paragraphs and we're out. And then if y'all don't know who Bell Hooks is, I'm going to read a little bit, because I'm not going to even lie. I only know of Bell Hooks. I don't know about her. So let's go ahead. The prolific and trailblazing author, poet, feminist, cultural critic, and Professor Bell Hooks has died Wednesday at the age of 69. And y'all don't think about that number. This is serious. Her death was first announced by her niece, Ebony Motley, who said that she died at home surrounded by family and friends. No cause of death was reported, but Berea College in Kentucky, where Hooks had taught since 2004, said in a news release that she had died after an extended illness. preferring to spell her name with no capital letters as a way of de-emphasizing her individual identity. Bell Hooks was born Georgia Jean Watkins as the fourth of 7 children in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, on September 25th, 1952. Her pen name was a tribute to her maternal great-grandmother, Belle Blair Hooks. That's where you get the name from. I want to read one last article on her, or one last paragraph, and then we'll continue. But here he is. The author of more than 36 wide-ranging books, Hooks published her first title, the poetry collection, And There We Wept, in 1978. Her influential book, Ain't I a Woman? Black Woman and Feminism, followed in 1981. 3 years later, her feminist theory, From Margin to Center, explored and critiqued the feminist movement's propensity to center and privileged white women's experiences. So there's a lot again. So thank you, Bell Hooks, for the knowledge and the activism, the poems, the poetry, all that you have shared, and sending love, support, and good energy to family and all her friends during this time as they mourn. But yes, if y'all have anything else, y'all, that was the last article. Again, it came from NPR, and the headline read, Trailblazing feminist author, critic, and activist Bell Hooks has died at 69. But with that, y'all, I'm going to read these. And I lost in a lapse of my mind, but I'm going to read these comments, and then we're going to move to the next portion or topic of the show. But let me see what y'all guys said. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken is weighing tough new sanctions against the military coup regime in Myanmar. Oh, wow. Myanmar people themselves are calling for sanctions against the lucrative gas fields in Myanmar owned by a French company, but the military got all the money when they took over the government and bank accounts. I posted a Bell Hooks tribute today, 5 top quotes by Bell Hooks. She's so amazing. And also too, this is my side to also plug, if y'all want a lot of knowledge, wisdom, as well as great book and just spiritual advice and workshops, etc., please go and follow Kundin, which also goes by Akasha Consultant Chabra, on Instagram, and also there's YouTube. Plug that all later, but please go and support Kundin. All right, with that, y'all, the next portion and topic that we have is self-fulfilling prophecy, as well as self-fulfilling prophecies. Now, before we get into it, I'm definitely going to ask y'all, as well as I am also going to read a description of it. But just from hearing self-fulfilling prophecy, what are your first initial thoughts? What words come to mind, and what phrases come to mind? Please throw them down in the comments. And yes, I'm looking at y'all on Instagram that watch this later, as well as y'all on YouTube that watch this later. Put a comment down there, man. Leave a comment as in, I'm here and I see you on the show. Leave that comment and we be good to go. But for y'all that's here too, when you hear the word and the phrasing self-fulfilling prophecy, what comes to mind? Throw them in the comments. And as y'all are doing that, I'm going to read 2 different examples of that so we can have a set idea where we're going and what we're going to be talking about with this. Now, self-fulfilling prophecy from these places that I got. One of them, I got it from the Botanica. And the self-fulfilling prophecy is a process through which an originally false expectation leads to its own confirmation. They trying to rhyme over here, but they ain't MCs like me. I'm just playing. And a self-fulfilling prophecy, an individual's expectations about another person or entity eventually results in the other person or entity acting in ways that confirm the expectations. So an idea of that, if y'all can give y'all an example, would end up being expecting to see somebody who's hot go and get some water, even though that person didn't even want any water, and having that expectation that yes, they're still going to get that water, and when that results in the person acting the way that they're going to get that water, it happens. So another example will be how you have your thoughts and these self-defeating thoughts. When you feed into those over and over and over and over and over again, it becomes that fulfilling prophecy of, now you kept on saying that you're a terrible person. So then in hindsight, you're letting it drive your decisions and you becoming a terrible person, as well as you justifying that. So I'm just giving some background on it. But again, this is a portion where y'all can definitely come in and join and interact as well too on the live. And just before you do, disclaimer, this does go up on YouTube. I've talked about it a few times as I went through the show. So if you're not comfortable with being on camera and being on YouTube or any other platform, it's okay. You can stay in the comments. But if you're fine with that, please come in and join. I would love to see you, as well as be able to speak back and forth on camera. But with that, y'all, let me read these comments and then we're going to continue on with this self-fulfilling prophecy. So let's see. It said, I also learned this week that my people, the Burmese, have the highest poverty rates in the U.S., twice the national average. Yes, you did speak on that. I remember hearing about that. Anytime, Kunin, always got a shout out. Again, it's support. You don't necessarily always have to be monetary. It is great that it can be monetary, but again, any other types of support, I'm going to shout it out. Especially you come in and give so much of your time. So I always have to shout you out, because that's just, I respect you. I highly respect you so much for what you do and giving of your time. So that's the least I can do. But yeah, self-fulfilling sounds like an automatic belief that becomes real only because of the belief. Boom. Yes, because you buy into it. Just like the placebo effect and even the less well-known nocebo effect. Yes. It said prophecy equals prediction, telling the future. Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. But again, I'm trying to turn tables so I can see all sides. Shouts out to the booth inside you. That's all it's about, is finding these perspectives and being able to see it all from the multiple sides. But again, here, what I want to speak about specifically with self-fulfilling prophecies, I want to start off, of course, but now I gave you what it is. What I want to speak about when it comes to self-fulfilling prophecies is its purpose. Why do we have this whole idea and concept around what a self-fulfilling prophecy is? And from my perspective, again, this is another way and another phrasing and word to express and to give us an idea of this behaviors that we exhibit and we show. So with a self-fulfilling prophecy, its purpose and how it is used is more so it's used as a crutch. It's used as something that we will also call excuses. But it goes beyond past excuses, because it also starts to have a negative impact, not only on mentally, but also what you do physically as well as behavior wise, because of the fact that you buy into this. Again, you give the energy, you give the thought, and you give the time and the effort into something that you're conjuring up. And when I mean conjure, that you're thinking up, that's in your mind. It also pairs in with fear, false evidence appearing real. And every time you come across a situation or something that happens, you already, what they will call jinx. You would jinx yourself. And then you continue to repeat that to a point that now every time that you walk across the street, that you have to do a backflip or you have to walk backwards so that you don't fall. just because of the fact that in your mind, every time you just walk straight before you walk across the street, you always fall and you always keep on falling. You start to basically, again, put these thoughts into your behaviors and your actions, which end up having a negative impact on how you function daily. So the whole function of a self-fulfilling prophecy is a crutch, but a crutch to a point that can cripple you. Crutches is not necessarily meant to keep you crippled all the time, especially when you know it's something to help prop you up. But the self-fulfilling prophecy gets to a point where it cripples you. So you have to be careful, especially if you catch yourself in a self-fulfilling prophecy yourself or somebody else doing the same thing. But let me see. Yeah, it's actually very easy to curse/hex someone. All you have to do is make them believe. Yes, it makes me think about colonialism and the story, spells and curses too. I have a story to share about this. Again, Kunin, you're always welcome to come in. Please do, because when you do, that's how a lot of the convo and stuff continue to go on and everything as we push forward with this. I think of Neo and the Oracle in the Matrix. Such a great example, brother. Thank you for sharing that. Again, when he came in, this is from the first Matrix, y'all. This is from the first Matrix. And he came in and she told Neo right when he was coming in that don't worry about the vase. And he's like, what vase? And ends up knocking it over. But again, it is like predictions, but it gets to a point where if you add it and it be behavior, it can be used to negatively impact all of your later on actions.
Hey,
What's going on, Kundin? Good to see you as
what's
always.
up?
What's the word?
What's the word? Yeah,
I'm with it. Shouts out to Just Blue that popped through too in the building. Thank you, Just Blue. I see you, Miss Edwards. Good to see you, James, as well. Good to see you in here. Peace and love to all y'all, and welcome to What's the Word Wednesdays, where we let you know what's the
yeah,
word on Wednesdays. I was playing, but go ahead, Kundin.
yeah. I recently read this story from basically a friend of a friend, and her mother-in-law was always like really mean to her and stuff. And then one day her mother-in-law like uh took her I think her wedding ring or something, like something, a precious jewelry from her.
Mm,
And then when she asked her about it, she was like, "Oh, I just gave it up for cleaning and to the cleaners."
okay.
And then she kept asking about it, a few days later, and then a few days later, she kept ignoring it, changing the subject. And so one day she decided to make up a story about the ring, and she said, I pity that cleaner, And her
Mm,
mother-in-law was like, "Why?" And she said, "Oh, because that ring is actually kind of cursed, from this. It was given by this person that was cursed. And so
mm.
whoever touches the ring besides the owner might also get cursed. And then her mother-in-law, of course, had touched the ring, and she was like suddenly really scared. And
Yes.
then she quickly changed the subject, right? But then a few days later, the mother-in-law had a minor car accident, and then she blamed it on the curse, and she was like, "Oh, because you cursed me," and she got really mad. And then things started getting worse and worse for her. Like she had worse and worse experiences because she
Wow.
believed that she was cursed.
Yes. Wow. See, y'all, again, that's why I keep saying it all the time, but I'm going to just keep reiterating it to y'all. Words are spells. You can put curses and hexes on people because for me, the word believe, when you put in and
Mm-hmm.
you believe something, look at that word, y'all. If you see the word believe, within the word believe, there's a lie. And when you buy into lies, you continue to feed it. And when you feed it the energy and you feed it your time and all of those things, there's no way that it's just gonna just chill out and be like, all right, cool, keep doing what you're doing. Nah, it's gonna want more of your time. So you feed into a lie and believe this stuff, it becomes a reality. If I keep on believing that one day that if I continue to go outside and cut the grass because I was told from somebody else if I cut the grass, somebody randomly down the street is gonna come and give me $10, $15 for cutting my own grass, and I keep doing that day in and day out, eventually it's going to be stuck into a belief where I even pass that down. And I'm not saying this is a part of when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to thinking about that. But again, with the self-fulfilling prophecy, you buy into this, you buy into the behavior, you buy
Mm-hmm.
into the superstition or what somebody says about something, and you take that word, because word is bond, y'all. It is powerful. You literally set yourself up. And please, you don't want to set yourself up, don't want to psych yourself out, don't want to jinx yourself, any of those things when that comes to that. Again, yes, we're looking at the, again, we do the whole talk of negative and positive, which we know is all relative, is dependent on your experience. But yes, self-fulfilling prophecies also have, a plus side, which every time when you think of a negative and a positive, it's just the reverse. If not, it is just the opposite face of each other. But I don't know if you had anything else, Kunin,
Yeah,
before
and
I
in fact,
start.
the reason why, the nocebo effect is not as well known as the placebo effect
Yeah.
is precisely because they're both so effective, and it's not exactly ethical to keep doing a nocebo effect experiment for too long.
Mm,
So they've had to like cut short the experiment often very early because it's so powerful. Like people really believe like the drug that they're taking has a negative effect,
yes.
uh, because they've been told that this would have a negative effect. So they've had to cut it short. Whereas with the placebo effect, when they're just given a sugar pill, right, and then they're told it's gonna cure them or something,
Yes.
and they believe it, that's more well known because they can able to like continue to experiment long term,
Yes.
because it has positive effects. Whereas the other has such disastrous effects that they've had to cut short the experiment. Yeah.
Exactly. Again, y'all, it also reminds me, I've talked about the book before and I'm gonna bring it up, and I need to read more books in this area. But there's a book that speaks specifically about your belief and how that has an impact on your biology. And the book
Hmm.
is called Biology of Belief, and it's by Dr. Bruce
Oh yeah, Bruce
Brooking
Lipton.
Lipton.
Yeah.
And again, y'all, it's very powerful because we think that after we've matured in our age past 25, 27, that your brain's fully developed, that development around in your body and stuff is done, and that anything that's already been set in stone with your body, that's it, which is the opposite case. Of course, you can always work out, you still change your body. Genetics is able to be changed. And this is where in that book they talk about a specific finding, which is called with epigenetics, learning that like the codes within that can end up be still malleable and be reintroduced and changed just by you believing that fact and you putting in the time to
Hmm.
do so. So for me, this is where the self-fulfilling prophecy on the quote unquote positive side will work, to where it works in
Hmm.
favor for you to help build to see who you are. Not the whole idea of like fake it till you make it, but the idea
Hmm.
of put that out into the universe. Some people say manifest, but at the same time, it's just you really visualize yourself in that place. You continue to repeat that. You can use it as in mantras and saying, well, not mantras, but really more so, the I forgot what it is
The
called,
affirmations.
the
Like.
affirmations, and for those things to happen and to
Hmm.
just appear. That is on, again, the
Yeah.
positive side of that. But go ahead, Kuni.
And it's really just about, like people have a misunderstanding about manifestation because they believe in the colonial watered down versions of it,
Mm,
because a lot of it literally comes from manifest destiny, which was genocidal,
yeah.
which was uh, and then from manifest destiny we have the prosperity gospel and then the law of attraction. But it's like it's not this direct magical thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like programming your own mind, especially your subconscious, to be more open
Mm,
and to have to be able to attract more resources, to direct your focus into more of what you want or more of that thing that you're aiming for,
yes.
right? Is That's literally what an affirmation does, what a lot of even you know the magical spells does, and really a lot of manifestation stuff is watered down versions of indigenous magic traditions, you know.
Mm,
And a lot of these magic traditions are really about, um, again, increasing the focus of your subconscious mind
yes.
to be more open to the resources so that you become more creative, more resourceful in the direction of that what you want, so that you start opening up to solutions that you might not have expected otherwise, right?
Yes.
And and to a certain extent, you might also like increase the energy as well,
Mm-hmm.
the energy of your relationships
Yes.
towards more of that what you want. But it's more of an indirect thing, right?
Mm.
And so that's also how a lot of spells work. They're just programming your mind in a certain way. That's like what that spell did to that mother-in-law, right?
Yes.
It wasn't that the curse caused the car accident. It just caused it to mess up her own mind so
Mm-hmm.
that she would mess up the driving, right?
Yes.
Because she was now afraid. And that
Mm-hmm.
fear went everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of like story spells are also like that. That's why like when you, in order to enjoy a story, to be invested in it, what is the term that we use for it? We use the term suspension of belief,
Mm.
suspend belief, right?
Hmm.
And that means you get past your prefrontal cortex
Yes.
and it goes right into your so-called crocodile brain, right? Into your subconscious
Mm.
mind, and then all past your defenses, and you start believing it. That's how stories work, even the written story, right?
Yeah.
And then once you have the audio and the visual with the movies and the TV shows, those are longer lasting spells,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Programming,
That's a
like you
program in
said.
your mind.
Yes.
And that's why, like, the more I decolonize and understand about colonialism
Yes.
and how far and deep the programming goes, the
Yes.
more and more careful I am now, because once I see it now, I cannot unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
I recently stopped watching Amazon's new show, The Wheel of Time, after episode three,
Hmm.
because I realized something important. Like after reading half of this book, after I went halfway through, so rearming Hinduism,
Kundin is
and
the book champ.
by Jamsi Sulak. I wish he had given a different name because it sounds violent, but it's actually the opposite of violence. What he means by rearming is not weapons, but like giving back arms, like the
Mm-hmm.
literal arms, limbs,
Yes.
giving back arms because our arms have been removed from us because of colonialism. And he actually talks about the violence of colonial programming, where it's the opposite of Hinduism, whereas in colonialism, they program you to believe that violence, that their violence and violence in general
Yes.
is not just violence, but just nature and human nature, when in reality, that's not true at all. Like he gives an example with, like, even if you look at the colonial nature documentaries,
Yes.
they will like dramatize and sensationalize the cheetah, killing the deer, chasing and killing the deer. And Giuliani in his book points out that in reality, in nature, that might happen like maybe once a day, maybe twice a day,
Mm-hmm.
because that's enough to last the cheetah quite a few days,
Yeah.
That's whereas what the colonizers have done with the factory farming, for example, right?
Yeah.
They're killing like billions of these cows and pigs on a systematic scale in these factories. No
Yes.
other animal in the entire history of the world has ever done this, ever does this, even to
Mm.
this day. And yet to justify that, they're calling it nature, right?
Yeah.
And just as the same way that they justify racism, right? They would say, oh, what about black on black crime, or what about Africans owning slaves? They don't say, by trying to do that, they're saying everybody does this as nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's the programming they want you to believe, and that's how they keep that spell of violence and domination, so that they really want a world where everyone believes behaves in this violent, dominating way. That's the program. That's the spell. In
Mm-hmm.
order to decolonize the spell, we have to look for new story spells, and that's what I've been doing the last few days. I've been
Mm.
researching solar punk, for example, because solar punk is more of an optimistic future, rather than the
Okay.
dystopian science fiction.
Okay.
And I bought quite a few books on solar punk stories,
Mm.
and
Shouts out to Noah
and
James in the building. It's the
Noah
big
James.
orca
Yeah,
in the building. Good to see you,
yeah,
brother, man. Much love. You a legend over here on this side, brother. So thank you for coming through.
yeah. And Larry himself has written like two stories that are part of the first two of a trilogy
Yes.
called the Kishkinder Chronicles. And I read the stories first, the fiction first, before I read his nonfiction, right?
Mm,
And to me, in a way, that gives me more context for his nonfiction because now, in retrospect, I realize why he wrote those stories because he was exploring like when when to use violence and when not to use it,
yeah.
and to have violence be the very last resort, very last resort,
Yeah.
because the irony is Hinduism is pro like peace and pro nonviolence, but simultaneously, all of our deities carry powerful weapons. Why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not wimpy. We are like we still like we will fight when we need to,
Yeah.
but it has to be the very last resort. Like it cannot be a tool of domination.
Yes. Man,
Yeah.
thank you for going around on a lot of that there too. Because earlier when you were speaking on the different traditions, especially the not just only the curses, but learning of like the spells and stuff, it started making me think about
Mm-hmm.
shamans. It made me think about voodoo. It made
Mm-hmm.
thinking of a lot of these very native as well as indigenous cultures and roots that we have that are looked and framed frowned upon
Mm-hmm.
because of that programming and the conditioning that we've been, set to believe that's been given
Mm-hmm.
to us, and not knowing that for a lot of this stuff, y'all, that getting back to your root and really building on, and I say it a lot, your knowledge of self. So having that foundation of knowing within self and going deeper to find the roots, whether that is, your own lineage, learning about, other cultures, you can do that as well too. And I really advocate for definitely going into doing that knowledge yourself, because you learn in different ancient societies, whether it is the Mayas, whether it is the Aztecs, whether it is
Mm-hmm.
the pygmies of different places, and I mean pygmy people of, if I'm correct, is over either Austria, over a place, indigenous folks,
Mm-hmm.
Egyptians, etc. You start to learn a lot of the values, principles, and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that has been taught back way when and brought here and
Mm-hmm.
resurfaced and refixed and told in his story,
Mm-hmm.
you know it's not even the full brunt, or if not the full effectiveness of it, and you start to
Mm-hmm.
go back and question, why is that the case? Because when you get back to the natural root of stuff versus the unnatural root of things, you start to truly know what the intent and purpose behind it was.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that up, because that made me, go into that, talking on to this whole, programming in the spell. And again, y'all,
Mm-hmm.
if our minds are able to be changed, our bodies also can change through the epigenetics and the studies, and just through your beliefs and what is said and done. It is programmable. So don't be
Yeah.
surprised that everything that you are watching and seeing and what you're doing has a play as well as an effect of how you're being programmed. That's why there is such thing as habits, rituals, routines. All of that play into the programming, because are programmable. In that case, we go in, our natural programming, of course, is to be out within nature and to be in one in tune with the earth. So that's why we have such things with the circadian rhythm and how we sleep, and why people go to sleep at night versus they stay up during the day, and
Mm-hmm.
you learn that it has a positive, not a negative impact on your sleep, and all of these things. Just knowing that when we say
Mm-hmm.
that we're really connected to this earth and this place, that's what is meant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If we only watch and read stories of violence and domination, like then we come to believe
Yeah.
the lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this is the only world that's possible, then we keep perpetuating that.
Yes.
And that's why we have to deprogram and reprogram ourselves and really start searching for and reading and watching like different stories, right?
Yes.
That's the one way I'm trying to break the self-fulfilling prophecy and the
Yes.
curses of colonialism and create
Yes.
new story spells for myself. You know?
Yes. And y'all have to. I mean, I say have to. You know, when you're moved to do so and you want to look up and learn something new, don't be afraid to read. You might even look, they have so many methods
Yeah.
of ways for you to get information nowadays. I mean, this right here can, be one of those for y'all, for people tuning in, and I appreciate it, as well as that's why there's podcasts, that's where there's audibles. You can read and find all of these things. And the important piece of this too is, and I'm gonna shot back to Kunin again, and I appreciate it from last time, is when you do look for information and you look for books and things of the sorts, look for folks that actually experience those things, that they're actually experts, or they are, people from a different culture that have that perspective of the culture versus someone who's on the outside looking in, giving their outside looking in perspective of the culture. Very similar to how, I'm not trying to go all over the place, but this is still going into all the self-fulfilling prophecies, similar to how you had the four gospels in the Bible. Those were all perspectives from each one of the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those were all the perspectives from what they were seeing from the outside looking in when it came to the experience of meeting Jesus and all this other stuff. Each of them had all different stories. That's why they were in different books. So you always want to go and get different resources and perspectives from multiple people, not just only one source when it comes to a topic.
Hmm. Yeah, so this is one of the collections I recommend, Solar Punk Summers.
Mm,
Uh, so the caveat is, not all solar punk stories are optimistic or peaceful because it's still a very young genre.
yes.
Like there's a companion collection called Solar Punk Winters, which I decided not to get because I read the reviews and it sounded very like bleak. And
Mm,
even from the title, Solar Punk Winters, I'm like, nah. And then there is steampunk. So steampunk is not exactly decolonial or peaceful in general, but this particular collection is written by Southeast Asians. So if you want,
mm,
all of these are written by Southeast Asians, and I'm from Southeast Asia, so it's not a voice that you hear very often.
yes.
So if you want to expand your perspective, I recommend this collection. It's called "The Sea Is Ours: Tales of Steampunk Southeast Asia," and it's a play on words because the sea, right,
Mm-hmm.
is an acronym for Southeast Asia, but it's
Oh.
also the sea because we're very close to the sea. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're close to the coastline. Uh,
I also was thinking of like,
yeah.
this right here too, that you see
Oh yeah,
as
that
well
too.
too, because
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
perspective that they're sharing in the book. You know,
Right.
um,
Exactly. Yeah.
man, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And another one I recommend is it's a 4 hour novella. It's an audiobook. You can also read it, but I recommend the audiobook because it's so soothing.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a 4 hour novella by Becky Chambers called A Psalm for the Wild Belts. And
Hmm.
it's the first of a duology. And it's set on an alien moon uh, in some other galaxy,
Mm,
navigating another planet. And so the people on there are like humans, they're humanoid, but they they were once violent, and now they've learned to cooperate, create technologies that are more in cooperation with nature.
mm.
They've learned to cooperate with each other. Their buildings literally like grow like plants because they're kind of made of fungi and stuff like that.
I
Uh,
am Groot. But yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of thing that solar punk comes up with. And then the
Okay.
setting is also about um, they used to have robots, but the robots woke up and had consciousness.
Oh my
And
goodness.
now, the usual thing that happens in these type of stories is the robots will, fight with the humans and take over. But what happens here is that the robots wake up and the humans decide that they no longer want to enslave the robots, and the
Mm,
robots don't want to fight with the humans. So what happens in this story, and this part of what makes it so different, right?
yes.
Is the robots just decide to leave the human people, the humanoid people,
Hmm.
and they go into the wilderness to define themselves. And they made a parting promise that after 100 years or 200 years, they will come back just to check in on the humanoid people and ask them what they need.
Mm.
And so after 200 years, the first robot and the first humanoid finally meet and they have an adventure together, and that's what the story is about.
Oh wow.
And they have like, and it's so soothing, like literally the dedication.
Yes.
I mean, every book
That's
starts
a
with a
dedication.
dedication, right? Yeah, the dedication is to anyone who needs a break. That's the dedication.
Oh wow.
And it's exactly what it is. Like, it's such a comforting, it's like drinking like a soothing cup of cocoa for 4 hours.
Mm.
And that's what I ended up doing on like Monday night and Tuesday night. And it was exactly the break I needed. So I highly recommend that too.
Oh, okay, I thought you were doing that like drinking cocoa for 4 hours. That's what you meant. But yeah,
I was like,
yeah, just downing, just downing it and downing it. But yes, oh man,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. That also just reminds me of the different spiritual practices involving going on like spiritual journeys, like within also different native and other cultures, and you go out into nature and you have
Hmm.
your, I forgot it's called in particular. If my brother is still in here, Sabu, he knows what I'm speaking on. But basically, you go out into the wilderness and you create. You go into that spiritual journey, and you'll have a spiritual guide that shows up in whatever of a form of an animal, and
Hmm.
you're out there finding your way. Like that's your next like step and journey, which
Hmm.
a lot of folks nowadays, and I think this would be something that would help combat against also self-fulfilling prophecies, is
Hmm.
being able to honestly create not only like those different type of rites of passage, but like create those times of exploration to grow spiritually. And it
Hmm.
doesn't always have to necessarily only be through religion, because sometimes even that can become static, and that could become just dead in the sense of you've gotten to a point of where you've learned so much that you can of this religion, and you
Hmm.
go to church over and over and over and over again, and you hear very similar stories, very similar sermons, and you wonder why you're still in the same place that you're in. And what that does, not only we talked about the echo chambers, or you want to call them the resonant chambers, and those sorts, but even in that term of itself, including with the self-fulfilling prophecy, is you keep yourself around in the same environment for so long, you only know of that environment and nothing else outside of that. And it hinders, all of the other possibilities and things that you can learn to help grow with yourself. So my main point that I'm trying to get with this, because I know it sounds like I'm rambling, is basically being able to have, those creating your own milestones and your own,
Hmm.
passages within life, to know that when I look back 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, have I ultimately, transformed more as an individual that I was looking to be, versus did I just continue to just day in, day out, only work, do this, never take time to really sit and figure out not only who you are, but also figure out where you want to go, and also figure out what brings you happiness, what brings you fulfillment, and what ultimately do you want to give back to the world. Or if you're jaded and you're mad at the world, go on that journey to figure out what ultimately deep down inside you made you mad and jaded at the world. But I like how you put
Yeah.
all the
And
recommendations that are all up in here. I wish I could do like multiple pins and like pin them for everybody to like see all of them there. But for all y'all that's out
yeah.
there on Instagram and YouTube, Kunde, one more time, go ahead and name some of these books so then people can go and look for them later on.
Yeah. I will name it in the comments too later after you upload it. Yeah.
That's
In
perfect.
fact, speaking of religion, there is a whole religion in that book, Sound for the Wild Bills. Like, she invented a whole new religion just for that story, which is also really cool. Like,
Mm,
and it's also very different from most of the colonial religions. It's a very like a soothing religion, and that's even a god of small comforts in that religion, which is like, I thought that was so cool. Like,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh, see, yeah, you still up in here, brother? Yeah, say yours are animal spirits teaches a lot. Every time I think of like spiritual animals, I think of Brother Bear. I love that movie so much because of that telling of learning yourself through the spirit, through him becoming a bear and finding out more of himself through that journey. As well as there's a book I read so long time ago called Touching Spirit Bear. It's like a really old book, but I can't remember in particular. I used to read this when I was a kid. But the whole idea and the whole aspect, if y'all hear that typing, that's cool and typing up all these books for y'all. So y'all gonna have your whole setup. Um it's important again when we're speaking about these self-fulfilling prophecies to know what you're saying and what you're doing and how much power and energy you put in to what you're saying and doing and believing, and how it will have an impact on how you move, behave, think, and feel about life, certain situations. That's why you have folks who have had bad experiences and they have put it in their mind that now, since they've had that one bad experience, and this could be relationships, this can be jobs, whatever you want to apply it to, they have this thought now that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that now, since they had a bad experience with a relationship, a business relationship, or even riding a bike. I just wanted to bring that up. And for those folks who can't ride a bike, being in a wheelchair, being whatever the experience may be for you, that now every time you get close to that experience, and I'm not trying to get into also the psychological stuff like that can cause PTSD and all of this etc stuff, but a lot of these things are very closely tied. When you're thinking about now, you just put in your mind that every time you see that activity or you've had that relationship and things and stuff, you are very hesitant and you've already start to put the negative juju and energy into that feeling without giving things out a chance. Part of that is because of your defense mechanisms, keeping up that wall so that you can still feel safe and secure. But at the same time, it's perpetuating a continued narrative that this is always going to happen because this has happened before right there. And because in my mind, I know this is terrible and that I have to watch out for this, that is going to continue that cycle. We talk about breaking cycles a lot on this show over and over again so many times because it's just very important. It's in your life. That's why there's such thing as a life cycle. I'm a proponent of a person that I'm very heavy on words because I'm an MC, I'm a writer. I mean, there's a number of different things of why I'm onto words, but because that's our language, it's a spoken language. We use words, so you have to be mindful and aware of how those are used and how they have that impact on you. Because at the end of the day, shoot, you are your own worst enemy at times, because if you believe what you believe and it continues to keep you going down this spiral, not only that you done it to the self, but you let experiences outside of the world add on to that to be done to yourself, because we got to take accountability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two sides to it, right? On
Mm-hmm.
the one hand,
Mm-hmm.
there, uh, I see why people do that. Why it's they use one incident, right? Like they might uh, say have one experience with one woman and decide to to behave towards all women in the
Way.
same way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And and it might be true about jobs too. They might have one experience with one job supervisor and they start, you know, trying to behave that way in all jobs. And so on the one hand, I understand why. Like I could see like it, the brain, right? The mind or the whatever you want to call that,
Yes.
the subconscious mind. We have a very limited capacity for information. You
Yes.
know, it's and so I think there is even an organ in our brain called the reticular activator because
Interesting.
we
Okay.
only so we only receive a certain so we receive like so many bits of data, right? I forget the exact number, right? Per second. And but I think our brain is only able to like process 256 bits per second. Don't quote me on it, but it's like something like that, right? So it's very small,
Computers,
right?
processors,
So,
that's our
so,
brains. Hey.
so how the brain processes that is by deleting, distorting, and generalizing,
Mm.
right? That's how it tries to cope with the information overload.
Mm.
And and so there is a certain usefulness to it in terms of making our daily function easier, right?
Yes.
Because that's how an ego develops as well. Like it's how babies turn into toddlers, into infants, into adults, like
Mm-hmm.
because is and that's why in the first 2 years, like we have the so-called terrible twos period, right? When the baby is always saying no,
Yeah.
right, to everybody. And that's because they're testing their boundaries, their ability to establish boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That's why they say no to everything, right? And and they're also testing your boundary as well, your ability to, so it's both ways. So, but that's how we learn, right?
Yeah.
But the downside is we don't, because most people don't realize this is how their brains work, this is how what they're doing. They don't have the self-awareness, and they also don't have the actual knowledge about how, the human mind can work like that. And and so they let these programs run them, and that's how they become run completely by the ego. Like there's nothing wrong with
Mm-hmm.
having an ego.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about getting rid of it. It's about understanding it and developing a healthy relationship with it so that you don't believe in every program that's running you. And maybe you might even want to delete some of these programs,
Yeah.
some of these which are more like viruses, right? And these unhealthy programs. But yeah, it's because over time you learn that that one experience doesn't mean every experience is going to be like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell y'all now, I'm not perfect. I'm a hypocrite myself when it comes to a lot of
Yeah.
this stuff. I'll share one of the experiences that where I know now this is one place I'll never go shopping ever again, and it's just like why not? And it's just again you can talk about it's the ego and other and experiences, but for me, y'all, and for those who are in here that know of this place, but I never shop at a Ross ever again, and reason being that I'll never shop at a Ross ever again was I was going for employment during the time that I was having a hardship when it came to finances and looking for a job. And
Mm,
during that time when it was very tough, I went and I did and I applied and I went and had an interview there at Ross and things went well. It was like the same day interview. So it's like they would tell you if you were, hired or they were interested. So I went in, had my stuff. I had my afro out and everything. It was presentable. I
mm,
had nice dress, shirt, pants, etc. Because I was also I was at an internship as well, so I went to go do this on the side. And
mm,
after I was done, went through, did all the questions and stuff, and before leaving, you know, I was pulled in and told that it was interesting. They liked me, etc., etc. And the only thing that they would wanted to say would become an issue was my hair.
mm.
And this was before California in particular would pass now that we know the Crown Act, which for some
The
people know the
Crown Act,
Crown
yeah.
Act, which is talking about not
Hmm.
being able, basically in short, not being able to discriminate different,
It's because of things like that that they had to do that. Yeah.
yeah. So because of the fact that that literally happened to me, as in basically I knew it was because of my hair because they asked, and this is funny because this was coming from also a black woman who was wearing
Mm,
a different type of hairstyle where it was long out, and it baffled me because after that happened, and I gave the response as in, well, I mean, I'm not gonna be able to keep my hair in cornrows or, keep it down that way forever, because sometimes it pops out. And during my time, I didn't have enough money to go keep getting my hair done all the time. So I was telling them
Mm-hmm.
truthfully that not maybe 60% of the time, but not all the time. And that, I wasn't looking to nowhere cutting my hair, because during that time, my hair was important
Mm-hmm.
to me. I was learning, I was on a spiritual journey with my hair.
Mm-hmm.
And the last response I had got was like, okay, let me check in with my supervisors and heads and corporate to see about this instance. And of course, boom, I don't hear nothing back. So I already knew initially that was the case. It's because it was of my hair. And this has happened on a few times. So for me, now every time I think of Ross, or if I ever will go to a Ross, yes, I have that in my back of my mind of the self-fulfilling prophecies that I'm not going to have a good experience because of the fact that that certain situation have happened to me. But that's something that I've come to learn and deal with. And for me personally, I was like, I'm just not going to support because of the fact that situation like that, which, there could be other
Yeah.
great Rosses and there's great people there. But unfortunately for me, yeah, I'm no more money for me, Ross.
Yeah. But that's more like a boycott. It's not a programming. It's a conscious choice you're making because you're boycotting Ross as a corporation as a whole. Because if they have this policy in one place, then that's probably a corporate policy. So then then it's the right thing to boycott until they change. Otherwise, or until they make a PSA or announcement or something,
Yeah.
saying they've even an announcement saying they've decided to adhere to the Crown Act would be nice, like a tweet or something.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because self-fulfilling prophecies are also very again conscious. People know of the stuff that they're doing,
Hmm.
because that's where initially a lot of things, and I could be wrong. Again,
That's
I'm
an
not
example
perfect.
of it being like positive, right?
Yeah.
Self-fulfilling prophecy can also be positive, where you're
Mm-hmm.
making a positive difference by boycotting something that's negative. You know, yes.
Yes.
So similar to the placebo effect. That is also a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's a positive one. Like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. But it can happen. A lot of stuff that we do know of hits the unconscious, but it comes into our mind consciously in the beginning when we notice stuff.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
again, just be aware of this, and just know that with a self-fulfilling prophecy, once you buy in and give energy to a certain thing or entity or a certain behavior or a certain number too of these superstitions, you add to that. I have a
Mm-hmm.
few ones myself, but for the sake of, more of the time and keeping things going, did you have anything else for a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Yeah. Well, another example would be there's something known as the confirmation bias,
Yes, we talked about
and
before.
even
Mm-hmm.
survivorship bias as well, where confirmation bias is like if you buy a red car for that day, you might see like red cars everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Uh, or even before you buy it, like once you start thinking about buying a red car, you start seeing red cars everywhere
Yes.
because your mind is focused towards seeing red, right?
Yes.
And then there's the law of attraction folks who try to use that as proof of law of attraction, and I'm like, no, that's just confirmation bias. It's just your mind thinks about this stuff, so you see it everywhere. Uh,
Yep.
Similarly, there is survivorship bias, where even I think survivorship bias is a form of self-fulfilling prophecy because survivors think just because they survived that the method by which they survived and maybe even thrived should be the method for everybody else,
Mm.
regardless of, race, class, gender, ability, all those things. And this is when the personal development industry starts becoming very sexist, ableist, racist, classist, when they don't factor in survivorship
Yes.
bias into account. Like,
But Kundin, there's so much things to take into consideration. Why do I have to go and learn all this stuff? Why do I have to have social justice workshops and racism retrainings and all of this other stuff? I just want to live my life comfortably and be simple and everything else. Why do I have to do all of this?
Yeah, that's privilege for you. You don't have to.
Again, I just,
That's
of
the
course,
thing.
I just to throw it out
Yeah,
there.
it's like you don't have to, and that's the paradox, right? The very fact that you don't have to means that maybe it would be good for the community if you do. It might not be good for you. It might actually be uncomfortable for you
Yeah.
if you're privileged, but it would be good for the community. But ultimately, if you have a communal mindset, you understand that what's good for the community is good for you. It eventually comes back, even though initially it's uncomfortable.
And that goes into us talking about before the difference between the individualism and the collectivism,
Hmm.
our whole idea and mindset. And yeah, we can keep
Yeah,
getting into that so much, y'all, but we still keep it pairing as we usually go. But for this, I want to push further now into the last topic and the last part of the show, which the
I
last
think I want to
section.
give one more example of
Okay.
confirmation
Before I do
bias
that, all right.
because
Okay. Before, yeah,
something that's been gnawing at my mind, right,
yes.
is the model minority myth, and people like Joe Rogan,
Mm,
perpetuating this myth, right, and which is that all Asians, are rich or they're hardworking or they're very good at math or whatever. And even Andrew Yang, the presidential candidate, instead of resisting, leans into it,
yeah.
right, uh, which is actually harmful for a lot of Asians because we're not a monolith. And I learned this week, for example, along with the Mongolians, my people, the Burmese, have the highest poverty rates in the US at 25%,
Mm,
which is twice the national average. So not only do we have a military coup and a civil war going on in that country right now, which kind of has been going on for 6 decades, but now
mm,
it's escalating into the major cities as well. And but even when we move into the US, we still go through like poverty and things like that, right?
yeah.
But because we're like lumped in with like the East Asians, the lighter skinned, you know, who are closer to, being the same color as white people because they're also, their skin is so light, they look white. They just don't look like rough like the white people. They look
Yeah.
very smooth, right? The Chinese and the Japanese and the Koreans are the ones who are rich, right? Are the ones who are super rich. There are a lot of Southeast Asians, especially the Burmese, are actually more on their poor side, right?
Hmm.
And and that's something a lot of like people don't take into account. Even among Indians, I think the northern Indians, the Punjabis who come here, uh, probably richer than say the southern Indians like the Tamils.
Again,
Yeah,
we make a lot of generalizations and use those
yeah,
generalizations, which can also be the detriment to closing off voices from other people because of the
mm,
fact that the stereotypes and the generalizations of people.
right. But it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of the myth being perpetuated more and more by confirmation bias
Bias.
because the more
Mm-hmm.
people believe in it, the more
Mm-hmm.
they support movies like Crazy Rich Asians, which became one of the best selling movies of all time, even though it's actually perpetuating the same myth that all Asians are crazy rich,
Mm-hmm.
when most Asians actually are not. It's a small minority who
Mm.
are more of the East Asians. Like,
And that's the whole thing with of another phrase that I know of. Yes, some more of my wise sayings that I hear from other folks is feeding the beast. And the
yeah,
more that you feed the beast, especially us, quote unquote, in the U.S. here being in the belly of the beast, I hear so many
hmm,
times. Um, we continue to buy into that consumerism. We are
hmm,
programmed to do a lot of these things in our behaviors, not only just how we think, but also how we consume products, how we we move and hold on to things, to the way we shape and smell and a lot of this stuff. So once somebody tells you, oh shoot, I heard that such and such, this type of car also helps you save on this gas mileage,
Mm-hmm.
and then knowing that, it gets back to the manufacturer, and knowing that the manufacturer may have honestly had that car where it was not a fuel efficient, but it was more of a gas guzzler. But because of the fact that everybody bought into it was eco friendly, and it had an eco friendly little button you can press on there, and it was supposed to save you gas. But since people decided to just only buy into the belief and not actually count out, like, okay, is this really saving me
Mm-hmm.
gas? It just perpetuates, and it starts getting awards, it starts getting accolades, it starts getting backing from other people, the credible people, to make it seem like this product, the car, or anything that you're being said is credible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the great irony is the same successful East Asians, the Chinese and the Japanese, like Imperial China and Imperial Japan,
Yeah.
were the invaders and colonizers of Southeast Asians, especially, and even South Asia to a certain extent, like the Indian subcontinent to a certain extent.
Mm.
And that's a great irony because, and even today, the Chinese continue to be colonizers via proxy. You know, where
Mm.
they're trying to recolonize Africa, and
Yes.
in fact, they're probably backing even the military coup in my country is the coup is a proxy war with China in a sense too that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah. And I think it was a while back. I
Yeah,
may be wrong.
yeah.
I got to remember too. There is a whole setup too of China was starting to mess with going into Taiwan in a while back as well too. Where
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
whole thing. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's the whole thing. Like they don't like Taiwan being recognized uh, at all as a separate independent country, and a lot of Western countries are like tiptoeing around that in these like ridiculous ways. Uh, I think even when Taiwan entered the Olympics, they were not allowed to be called Taiwan. I think something like that. They were called like alternative China or something like that. Like I forgot exactly, but like, and I was like, wow, that is so ridiculous. But that's how it is. Like, and along with Europe and China is now, so the way they're trying to recolonize Africa is similar to how the Vatican works,
Worked.
right?
Oh,
The
okay.
Vatican is its own country inside Rome, inside Italy. It's inside another country, but it's its own country,
Country.
right? So China and Europe are trying to recolonize African countries in the same way, where they're proposing to limit immigration to their own countries by
Mm-hmm.
proposing to these African countries, hey, instead of having your people come to our countries and using up our resources, we'll come to yours and build these colony cities with our own rules that are exempt from the rules of the host government.
Yeah, that's been going on
That's
for
basically
years. Yeah,
colonization in another form.
yeah.
Like
I mean, you can
they're
you
basically
can look that
building
stuff.
company towns
Yeah.
called corporate cities,
Mm-hmm.
which used to happen in the United States too, right? So they're trying to do that back in Africa now.
And that's been going on for a while. There's still a lot of African countries that
Mm-hmm.
are still under rule in certain European countries, as in they their GDP and some of their resources and stuff still go to funding different European countries. I think there's like 14 in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, I mean, I was seeing that happen like 3 plus 4 years ago, and it's been going on even more and more, as of course got this pandemic and other things going on. And for people who are into stocks and just marketing and buying and all this stuff right now, like there's so many of those type of moves being made. So when we talk about like owning land and owning pieces of property and stuff of that sort, um it's happening all over. Like there's people trying to, yeah, there's all
Mm-hmm.
those pieces of Africa is just being bought and trying to be invaded in that way. Because I remember when I was
Yeah.
studying abroad, and I did live in in Italy, specifically in Florence, for a while. I would see
Mm-hmm.
Moroccans and folks coming over from
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopia and Morocco, as well as around in Egypt, and they would be out over there either on the streets or just within the cities. And they're talking about using up all of their resources, like you just previously said.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's just interesting, as well as that shows, and it goes back to earlier, not only the self-fulfilling prophecy, but also just the characterization of the differences between different refugees when coming into countries versus others, because the whole situation with um, Haitian, and they're having
Mm-hmm.
the officers get on the horses and they're doing all the whipping versus folks that was coming
Mm-hmm.
in over from Afghan. And I mean, again, all the certain situations
Mm-hmm.
again are tragic in both sets, but you see the different policing and the narrative being set on that, not thinking that
Mm-hmm.
oh, more so Haitians and them are going to take up so many resources versus Afghans and all this other different stuff. Again, these are
Mm-hmm.
all programmed things that by experience and
Exactly.
by people feeding into this, they create these narratives, the self-fulfilling prophecies that then later on people just continue to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
it's also an example of being a minority doesn't always mean you're oppressed
Mm.
because in South Africa, for example, the Europeans, the white people were the minority
Mm-hmm.
in South Africa, and they still are, and yet they were oppressing the majority South Africans for decades, for centuries, and apartheid with the apartheid policy, right? And apartheid didn't even end until 1994, right?
Mm.
And even though it officially ended, they still have an economic apartheid now, where European colonizers are still the dominant hierarchy, but
Mm.
at least they're not the political hierarchy anymore or the racial hierarchy anymore.
Yeah.
But they still have an economic oppression against the native South Africans over there, even though the South Africans are the majority. So that's another
Mm.
thing to be aware of, like because a lot of people think in very like U.S. centric terms, where in the U.S. white people are the majority, Africans or black people are the minorities, and they are oppressed. But that's not always the case. In other countries, there's the opposite dynamic. And if
Mm-hmm.
you look at the world stage, right,
Yeah.
Europeans and white people are the minority of the world's population. They're like 5% of the world's population, right? But they're still oppressing the whole world, the entire global south, right? With constantly destabilizing democracies everywhere. Every time they want oil,
Mm.
every time they want a resource, they will go and stage a coup. Like you were talking about Haiti.
Yeah.
What the U.S. did to Haiti in the last 4 decades is ridiculous. They kept like reinstalling and deposing the same guy over and over for in the 20-year period.
Mm.
Like the Aristide was his name, over and over again. That's the level of power they had over the Haitians. And even this year, like this mysterious assassins
Oh yeah,
assassinated
you're
the
right.
Haitian president,
Yeah.
and some of them were wearing USDA clothing uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely US meddling over there too at that time too.
So be mindful of what you believe in, okay, y'all? Always make sure
Yeah.
you critically think about it. And if you're going to buy into it, just know the consequences of what you're doing with that, because it can have an ultimate effect of not only yourself, but outside in your own environment and people around you,
Hmm.
okay? We're going to continue still with
Yeah.
this, but I want to move to the last topic for tonight, which we're going to talk about why misery loves company.
Mm.
And if y'all have never heard that phrasing or that adage being said before, now's your first time that you're hearing it. Um, and before I even get more into it, I just at least want to give a definition on the word misery. So then, and some
Mm.
folks, I know we know, I mean, not gonna say, actually, I can't assume, okay, y'all, can't assume, but I'm gonna just put out the definition for misery, and then we're gonna get into why misery loves company and what company is. Company is people, but here we go. So this is from the Webster's Dictionary. There's more dictionaries out there, but we're going with Webster's. So if you want a different definition, go ahead, y'all. There is no universal definitions for a lot of this stuff. But misery is a noun. First definition says a state of suffering and want that is the result of poverty or affliction.
Mm.
Second definition, a circumstance, thing, or place that causes suffering or discomfort. Third, a state of great unhappiness and emotional distress. Now, of course, there's synonyms and everything else there. You know, I'm not going to go all
That
of
is so
those.
weird
Mm-hmm.
because two of the definitions kind of contradicts each other in a way because
Oh,
if you look carefully, one defines it as a cause and the other defines it as an effect.
yeah, the state. And then the
The
other one
state as a
causes,
yeah,
yeah.
see one defines it as a cause of suffering, the other definition is a result of physical circumstance or extreme poverty. I'm like, huh, that is very weird. Like,
Again, that's why we read all these different definitions, because then everybody gets confused on what people are saying and try to talk about when we use certain words. And I'm like, I thought it meant this. No, it also means that, but it then also means the opposite thing that you were trying to not use another word for, but it still means that. And it's like, all right, then what word can we use? But in this essence that we want to talk about misery in the onslaught of, or the onset of company, is just the whole thing about suffering. When I think of misery, you think of that suffering and some type of discomfort, being unhappy. So
mhm.
why misery loves company is a Lisa Wise saying I've heard so many times. That is basically, to me, boiled down in this thought of basically basically having to do, again, we talk about energy, bad vibes and stuff of that nature, and how it gravitates towards itself. So if you feeling down and sad, you feeling depressed, you feeling that you're bad, again, you invite more people into your life that are experiencing very similar in the same things as that. And again, there's a reason why I put both self-fulfilling prophecy and why misery loves company together, because it ties into each other so much, to a point that when you find yourself in these states, you find and you gravitate and you have people that come to you in those same states, that it perpetuates that same self-fulfilling prophecy as it continues on. But I want to talk about, and you can jump back and forth with it, Kundin, about,
Mhm.
why in particular, or how one makes people come towards you when they're feeling misery or feeling sadness or feeling unhappy. Is why do we do that? Why do we do those things?
When why do we do what?
So I mean, why do we look, and I know it can be an unconscious thing I can say, but why do we look for other people who are also experiencing the same thing we do? So in this case, people, miserable people look for other miserable people.
Mhm.
And not, and in a sense of, why don't they just be miserable by themselves, quote unquote?
I mean, they're looking for comfort, empathy, maybe even community, I guess. I think one of my favorite quotes, I forgot who said it, but it said, shared, shared joy is double the joy, and shared sorrow is half the sorrow.
Mm.
So it's true misery loves company, but it's also true that joy loves company too, where
Mm-hmm.
because this is why people go to concerts and clubs and dance parties, right? Where because uh, we want to double the joy, right?
Mm.
It's why people go to weddings and celebrate weddings. But conversely, people also go to funerals, right? And
Mm.
why do we invite other people to a funeral just as much as we do a wedding? Because we want, in the case of a wedding, we want somebody to celebrate with us, right?
Yes.
Um, but in the case of a funeral, we want the community to share our pain so that we can reduce our pain. We can halve the pain.
Yes.
the sorrow. I think at least that's how I see that. It's like a human need for connection that
Yes.
goes both ways. Like,
Exactly. No, I'm glad you touched on that because that's basically at least where I was going with it. And I found the quote, but it just says specifically a Swedish proverb. That's all it is. That's what it
oh
says.
really?
So it says shared joy is a double joy and shared sorrow is half a sorrow.
Hmm. It's a Swedish proverb. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
At least again, I'm looking on different websites. I already looked at two different ones and they said the same thing. But
Okay.
yeah, the reason why again, like you said, is because it's again we talk about it's the human connection. People don't want to experience a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things by themselves, especially we'll get into talking about the difference between being alone and being lonely. And when
Mm-hmm.
you are miserable, when you are feeling down, when you don't want to end up feeling bad and feeling in this place, or for folks also being in a depressive state, there, it happens in days and times. Um, you look outside yourself for someone to also come in there and to be able to share that. And for some people, they use it nefariously. And other times, some people use
Mm-hmm.
it in a sense of, yes, they're really needing that extra, push that extra lift up to
Mm-hmm.
help them low, what's it called? Decrease the burden. In this sense, half the sorrow, like you're saying from this
Mm-hmm.
proverb, so that it becomes bearable. So it becomes that they can get back on their feet and that they can
Mm-hmm.
literally push forward. But the
Mm-hmm.
reason why also misery loves company outside of the, positive fact of holding on and uplifting, it also wants to multiply.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it is a quote unquote virus.
Mm-hmm.
Misery, if put in the right place, programmed in the right mind for people that think like minds, there's a high chance that it will multiply to a point where the effect becomes more damaging than the output of you looking for people so that you can lessen it. It becomes more. And becomes, again, like when I spoke about earlier about the self-fulfilling prophecy, becoming a crutch in particular. And it
Mm-hmm.
becomes something that will cripple you over time. So you're always going to feel miserable. And when I think of an example, this is a funny example that I think of, um, and it comes from the Boondocks. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
episode, cartoon episode. People call it an animation, and but some people call it cartoon, but etc. There was a group. I forgot the particular name of the group or what they called it, but there's the main character is Stinkmeaner. It was this old, very just grudgeful, just angry with the world individual that just wanted to cause misery and pain to any person that they met and saw. And they had a crew of people that was their job, was to be doing stuff like that. And for me, that's the onset of the opposite aspect of what misery loves company can do, is that
Mm-hmm.
multiplying effect. Yes, it can be the one to help lessen, but if you put it in the right place and you got the right minds to be programmed in that way, it can multiply like a virus to a point where it can continue to include more people who are in that same point. And it just does that when you think, again, you'll be confused and you'll think that you're lessening the misery, but you're actually adding on to that particular misery, bringing it more into the world. I see you, brother. I'm gonna get you up in here, and
It
shouts out
depends
to
on
Hugh in
how
here
it's
too.
done, right?
Yes,
How it's
yes,
approached. I think I would imagine how it multiplies instead of being halved is if it's done with broken loops or open loops, right? I
yes,
think I've mentioned this before regarding the science, the neuroscience of storytelling,
yeah.
right? And after studying the neuroscience, I've developed my own model, and this is something I came up with originally, right? This is my own original idea where I said oppression is not only the opposite of story, it's the interruption of story. Because what
Mm,
oppression does is not only does it interrupt the story, it continues that interruption with an endless broken loop without any closure. So when
Ooh, yeah,
so that's the way it can multiply when misery can multiply in a company is when somebody tells a story with a broken loop without closure, and
yeah,
another person will continue that broken loop again without any closure, and they will keep this endless series of broken loops,
yes,
and then nobody provides closure. Like nobody ends the story for
yes.
anybody.
That is a
That's how it multiplies. If you just leave it hanging there, you
yes,
need closure for it to be halved, like in the proverb.
yes.
Otherwise, the opposite can happen. Yeah.
That is very true, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's basically the reason why it will multiply. And then that whole thing is that you just want the thing to continue. You want this. This is the
Mm-hmm.
song that never ends. That it just continues to go
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on and on. The same song and dance with that
Mm-hmm.
without it being, added on or being really addressed. And it's like we don't want to address it because it hurts so much. But then, we're just gonna keep doing this thing because then it's gonna help, just only fix the symptoms at the time, but not get to the root. And shouts out to the
Mm-hmm.
brother in here, Chairman Dallas in the building.
What's
What's
up?
the
Hey,
word, brother?
Dallas.
Good to
Oh,
see you,
what's
G.
up, gang? I didn't even see you, gang. My bad. What up, John? And
What's up, Dallas?
shout out to y'all for having me, gang. Hey, it's not my live.
Yeah.
It's my brother
Welcome
CJ
again.
live. But
What's up, Hugh?
I can't add you. CJ gotta add
And
you. You gotta send him
Jesus,
a
listen.
request. But
He don't even know what's going on. He got to figure out. But welcome all that is in here. This is What's the Word Wednesdays. I am your host, A.D.V.I.S.S. What I do on Wednesdays is we have different topics and convos speaking about a various of different things. And it gets, fun. It gets very intellectual. At the same time, this is just more so for us building community and learning, whether if we agree or disagree on whatever it is. So just let me know. What's the word?
right, facts.
He said,
Nah,
nah, I hear you.
nah.
I
Check it.
had to. Uh,
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
y'all
In
was saying.
fact,
What was y'all saying? Say that last thought again. Run through that last thought one more time.
we were just talking about how misery loves company and how it can be halved, but also how it can multiply via this concept of open loops or broken loops.
What's
Yeah.
good, man? What's good?
What's up,
Gang,
little rock?
How
yo.
y'all
Yeah.
doing? Nah, hey, bro, you talking facts though, bro. I'm hearing you, bro. I was listening to the conversation. You talking facts for real, bro.
No, I was
Oh,
listening too.
appreciate it.
I was
Yeah,
Yeah.
tapped in.
That's both of
facts.
them. So
In,
welcome to What's the Word Wednesdays,
welcome.
brother. Nice to
How y'all
meet you, my
doing,
G.
man? Yes, sir. Nice to meet
Hey
you,
John, this my other brother CJ. CJ, this John.
CJ. Nice to meet you, CJ. What's your
Peace
name,
and
bro?
love. And
My name's Kundan.
Huh?
Kundan.
Kundel?
Kundan.
Kundan.
Quindan.
Yeah.
Quindan.
Yeah.
Word. Nice to meet you, man. My name John, man.
Hey, now for
Hi,
real.
John.
Hey, y'all two might actually meet though. CJ up in LA too though, for real.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Oh, that's what's up. I'm in Glendale. I'm in Glendale.
I'm
Okay.
already here.
Yeah,
ooh,
Nah,
so
that's awesome.
real quick, cause I remember somebody was talking about Misery Loves Company. You feel me?
Yes.
Like, and it's funny that y'all say that about a repeating cycle, and that's important
Mm,
because I'm actually looking at some things right now, and I'm just watching people like, as far as like when they have an opportunity to not be a part of that cycle or that
Mm-hmm.
that company, what is it that you end up doing? We can say that we want better and things like that, but
Yeah.
it's like what steps, progressive steps are you taking to be around better people and better, just I don't like to say better, but just more positive vibes. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Really, how that worked for me.
I mean, that's
yeah.
why there's another saying that goes along with the misery loves company, and I've had it said to me so many times, is it says watch the company you keep as well as birds, birds saying flock together. Like these all of these sayings, the reason why I like to bring up adages and sayings, because I told this before in previous show, is that once you guys whoever, everyone, you go and you actually study or at least come to find out why we have all these different wise sayings in the world, you have a key. You have
Right.
multiple keys on how to really maneuver in this life. Because there's reason why
Mm-hmm.
we keep bringing this stuff up all the time. And to
Mm-hmm.
continue with the misery loves company, and then I
Yeah.
want to hear all of y'all's perspectives more on it. Is
Also, have you
again,
seen
brother,
Wedding Crashers?
huh?
Have you seen Wedding Crashers? The movie Wedding Crashers, the
Oh yeah,
Hollywood movie.
yeah,
Wedding Crashers.
What is
So
y'all
remember that
talking
scene
about?
when they went back to their mentor and the mentor was like, "Nah, I don't crash weddings anymore. Now I crash funerals because they work better." And
mm,
so he was a manipulator who took advantage of the misery and provides comfort, but only to a certain extent. He
yes,
also simultaneously perpetuates it so that he could have sex with the women, right? So
Mm.
mm,
he does that fine like balance of perpetuating and also providing comfort, just enough for him to like be able to like get laid. And so there are also people like that who will manipulate the misery and perpetuate it for their own benefit
Hey,
for
CJ, I got a
whatever
question.
reason. Like,
yeah,
My bad. I ain't mean to cut you off, bro. So, like, what is your show about? Is it like you just talk about like life or like stuff that's going on or like what is it about?
yes. So by
Because
the
I just
way,
tuned in. It's my first time. I'm
oh yeah. Oh no,
yeah.
you're good. You're
mm-hmm,
good, brother. And I'm glad that you said that. And by the way, yes, Dallas is mainly the only person that calls me CJ. Everybody else on the lives called me A.D.V.I.S.S. He just has
Advent.
that
Okay,
special
word.
name for me. But no, you're good, brother. I'm just because he be sometimes be like, hey yo, man, stop calling him that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, for all those, if you don't know, again, what's the word? Wednesdays for me, what it embodies is building community through not only just topics and talks, but also building on the fact that we talk about unity so much, but we don't take the time and the actions to start with conversation,
Right.
as
Right.
well
Right.
as to just build and support each other. We don't have to always necessarily do it monetary. It's great that we do that, but
Mm-hmm.
before we can even get the money on the table and make those type of moves, we got to be able to have the same and the like minds and the like perspectives, if not, very similar goals, so that we can have this in mind. So I made this show in mind to also give a platform for people to come in and share their perspectives, so that not only I can selfishly learn from y'all, but also to provide a space that literally, if you want to talk about what you want to talk about in this confines, we can talk about it. Yes, we'll set the boundaries. Yes, we'll set the things, but I want this to be open dialogue to a point where people can not only take something away from it, but also they've felt that they've added something to it. Because again, this I wanted
Bro,
to build it on the community.
you should start like a podcast, bro. Honestly
That's what I
speaking, you
be
should start
telling them,
like a
bro.
it is
I
kind
be
of a
for
telling
real,
people
bro.
that
podcast
all the
Like,
time, gang.
because this
I
goes
be
on
on his
YouTube
head
too.
all the
Yeah.
time. I'm like, bro,
cause
you
bro,
are going
look, I'm
crazy with
facts,
this.
bro. Cause look, I'm on TikTok, bro. Like, not to brag or nothing. Like, I got like 160 something K, bro. But like,
Woo.
people like they like what you doing right now, like just conversating and like, just like honestly, bro, like if you hopped on TikTok, bro, you'll like impact a whole bunch of people, bro. Like I'm being straight blunt 100 with you, bro. Like,
Hey,
what I'm
real
saying?
quick
Cause you
though.
just upbring, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, real quick. Self-fulfilling prophecy. What did y'all talk about for that one?
I like how you going back and forth. He was like, bro, I didn't miss out. You dipped in and then dipped back out. But in short, the reason why, bro, it's tied to why misery loves company. But in short, we talked about why how a self fulfilling prophecy is ended up being a behavior that is almost like repeating the cycle of insanity,
Like
thinking
being
that you
selfish.
do you do the same result, thinking something is going to end up being different, but it ends up being the same thing. But it also gets to a point where it's we see it either it can be in curses, it can be in superstitions, it can be in just things that we thought happen to us in that experience. So every time we come back to that experience, we're always
We
going to
think that
think
it's
that's going
gonna
to
happen
happen
again,
again.
and it's funny,
Yes.
and that's funny that you say that because like dealing with some stuff right now. You feel me? I'm looking at those specific things. You feel me? Like, and that's like a friend of mine had to tell me. Like, she was like, "Yo, D, you a leader." You feel me?
Mm,
And not a lot of people know how to lead. But I, like you just said, like you got to be able to look at that. Like when somebody, I think the strongest thing about becoming a leader is identifying that and
mm,
patient enough to work with somebody that is going through that, so they can develop and evolve to the best version of themselves. You know, sometimes I feel like all we
Mm-hmm.
need to do sometimes, and this is within anything, is give some patience to, give patience
Mm-hmm.
to a situation, and then perhaps we'll see a different outcome, by being patient, nurturing it, versus um antagonizing it or scrutinizing it. You feel me? Like you
Yeah.
said, like keep talking about it, going tit for tat, going back and forth. That type of energy don't never
Mm-hmm.
you gonna get the same outcome. You can't hope for nothing better if you're not taking better, more progressive steps.
And that's
Hey, Dallas,
word.
speaking on leader, bro, you a natural born leader. You a natural born leader.
Mm.
Nah, for real though. You shaking your head. Nah, for real, you a natural born leader. You probably got two girls in your room right now.
Bro, sir, good, G.
Mm.
Nah,
What's
for real,
going
you
on,
a
Hokin
natural born
Music? Good
leader.
to see you in here. Good to see you in here.
Hey, I'm
And
just saying.
Hey, hey.
but yeah,
Man, but
but
hey,
look at
I'm
the funny
actually
thing
headed
is I'm
out.
a,
I gotta go, but hey,
Oh,
man,
what's up,
I'm gonna
Johnny? I
follow
didn't
you.
know Johnny
I'm gonna
was
follow
here.
you,
What's up?
man. Nice to meet y'all. Y'all be
same.
safe, man. God bless all y'all.
Peace and love.
Appreciate you. Peace
Hey,
and
Yes,
love.
Famo, I'm
sir,
gonna
man.
tap in with you, Famo.
All right, brother.
But look, speaking of that, before we continue on too, I'll just say this, y'all. Y'all keep talking about a podcast. Just know something's in the works. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely. And like I
Is
said,
there like software that can also extract the audio out of video? There is probably software, right?
say that one more
So
time.
I'm again, I'm letting you
Yeah.
know it's in the works. That's all I have to say.
Uh,
It's in the works.
okay.
Y'all gonna find out very soon what's happening and what's going on. But I'm glad that this is getting not even gonna say I really at the end of the day I don't say I always want to look for the recognition. Yes, it's great. I get to see numbers of people coming in and
Give
stuff of
your
that sort,
flowers, gang. Fuck all
bruh.
that humble
But
shit.
look,
You getting
look,
your
look, look.
flowers.
Look,
You
but
getting your
it's just
flowers.
I'm
Yeah.
just grateful. I'm just grateful people are coming through and finding, this either on their own or for themselves so that they can use it. That's one of the other reasons why this platform or at least this particular show was created, just so I can also share something, and then if somebody out there hears it, they resonate it, they run with it and they try it, and if it works for them, it does. And I'm not the only one that's voicing this stuff. You got
Mm-hmm.
Kunden coming on here, who was on here
Mm-hmm.
consistently, which I always appreciate Kunden for doing so. And you got brothers like yourself, Dallas, and other people that come through to add another spice to this. Because again, ain't nobody gonna want to keep eating the same dish over and over again. Of course, as much as people may like to see me, sometimes
That's
people don't want to see me or keep hearing me talk.
nah. Yeah, I get what you're
So
saying.
and look it, and I'm humble enough to say that because I swallow my own pride. Because at times there's when I hear y'all going in and y'all saying stuff that's very profound, my inner self is like, or like my ego over there is like, man, shoot, they said a good point. I want to jump on what they said, and now I want to take over the conversation. I'm like, no, why? Because literally we're building. There's no need to have that process of like I'm trying to one up you and king me. Like, no, it's more so that you added a point. It was beautiful. It made me think of something, but I'm gonna just chill real quick and wait till one you're done and then add my addition to it. But in the point of I took my time to think about what I was gonna say versus, oh, I just wanna one up you with this knowledge and this scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
No.
No, facts, yo. And it's funny that you say that about your pride, allowing you to like first of all, ridding yourself of pride so that you can learn something. Because that was something that I was explaining to somebody on my team earlier. Like I was explaining to this person, like your pride will prevent you from seeing and doing certain
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm,
No, because she's a woman, that's a little more challenging how to explain that, you feel me? Or at
mm,
least get that side of the spectrum to see it. And because it's a little, and I've always said this, I say accountability is a woman's tonight. Not to say that she can't master that,
That was the topic last week.
because
Yeah.
you can master that, you feel me? But
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but she has the person, anybody, but specifically I find it more challenging within women, like as far as that accountability of letting the pride go. One of my closest friends on this team, she we actually was down the other day, and she was actually telling me, she said as women, she feels like women has way more pride than me.
Mm,
She
Mm,
feels like
interesting.
their ego is way bigger for the woman, and this is a woman that has been through things, and seen a lot of positive and negative. So it's like for her to say that, I feel like that was big. That was very big. Like people like her definitely need to speak up more and get the recognition and they flowers, just like you get your flowers on even ridding yourself of that pride. They say when a man rids himself from pride, he gets closer to God.
Mm,
Because you have to be able to strip yourself of, I like to call them these earthly things. You feel me? Like these just this world things. You have to strip yourself of that stuff, like get that off of you and armor yourself up with a different type of armor, so that way you can't be affected by much going on. No matter what the weather is, no matter what storm from the come, you're gonna be protected by some others. The divine power that is like none of the
mm,
earthly stuff can really phase you. It can't even shake you. You feel me?
mm.
That's
Look, I love the point. I love the point that you made, and I want to add to it by pushing back on you
go ahead.
and saying if we do decide that we need to get rid of ego, pride, and all these other different things, first thing is what, like you said, what are those substitutes going to be? Two, if we're starting to devalue what those things can be seen, how can we see them in more of a positive light? And then three, will that make us more or less of a human in doing those things of that nature?
The second one, you said devalue what?
So the aspects, again, it's always, remember, I talk on the
No,
show, I do this on
I know,
purpose.
but I want to.
The pros and the cons of stuff, because we have already a preconceived notion about things before we even go out there. Again, we talk about the programming, the self-fulfilling prophecies. When you hear the word, literally, what, when you think of hearing a word, maybe like the word break, you already think of something negative. You think of something that's broken. When you can think of break actually meant like somebody actually broke a world record. That means they achieved something that was great. But when we hear the word break, we think of something, oh, they broke the table, or they broke something, or they, smashed a car or something. So when I'm thinking of pride, that's
No,
why
I'm
we
saying.
have
No, I'm
those.
saying. Your second question about devaluing something. I just want to know specifically what that
Yeah, that's what I'm
question
saying.
is.
No, that's no,
No,
that's
no.
my
Say the
that's what I'm
question again.
reiterating.
Ask it
No, I'm
again.
So no, I'm saying that my second point, it wasn't a question, but my second point was saying, then if we're going to devalue that, like you were saying, like I said, then you know how would we be able to also see the wholeness in it too, as in the other side of it? That's why I talk about the pros and cons of stuff. So as in
As if we was to
rephrasing,
devalue pride.
yeah, like as in when you say devalue, I'm talking about as in giving
It goes back
a
to the
negative
word
idea
balance,
of what
right?
pride is. Just saying, like, already you have to get rid of the pride, but as humans, there's things that we cannot get rid of. We learn to tame, or we learn to not only live with, but we learn to reframe it. And I get what you meant. I just wanted to push back again to build on the idea and build on the concept of that. Because I agree with you of what you were saying. But again, there's no way I can completely be like, all right, pride, boom, disappeared. You're never showing up again. That's unrealistic.
I
But
mean, you could work on honestly. I'm gonna keep it a bean. I'm gonna speak on my end. I'm not gonna speak for everybody,
yeah.
but what I've been doing, is I'm gonna say you can work on it and you can slowly see yourself being less and less and less, and just to the point where you just eventually you in that, I like to call it the flow state. You within that flow state of where you nothing is bothering you, like some negative stuff happened today, but it's like, you know what, I found it in myself to jump on here and was like, you know what, let me tap in and let me spread love. You feel me? Because one of the things that I had to call one of my friends just now, but she was telling me, she was like, she said sometimes the people, who do the most, like myself and things like that, this is what she was telling me, just saying like, you know this, we can't let that stuff weigh us down. You feel me? Like, if somebody decide to be unhappy
Yeah.
for whatever reason, that's why when they say misery love company, if you look at somebody that's miserable, be nice to them and see what happens. You feel me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I like to push on those things. You feel me? Because it's like I like to do the opposite
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, I like to challenge the norm, or what people see as the norm once again, because I'm protected with a different type of armor, so I'm coming at it a different type of way.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's a reason why. And I even had to look at why women were so attracted to me. You feel me? Like the women that I've dated, I had to look at that. Right? It was
Yeah.
because your when you approach things differently, like when you come at it with so much, like Snoop Dogg said this in an interview the other day. He was just like, "Love, man. You know, don't
Mm-hmm.
don't people be like they gonna get their karma. They bad karma and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Why you even wishing that on them? You feel me?
Yeah.
Don't do none of that. Just move the way you need to move. The
Mm-hmm.
work on yourself, and that's how you can stop one person at a time, one conversation, one heart, whatever. I always like to
Yes.
say that. That's how you can stop those things, just by working on it within yourself. When I let my
Yes.
pride go and I see somebody else still got pride, I like to sit back and I might roll one and just watch them and be like, I'm gonna let them speak everything they had to say. Cause then when I don't say nothing and they just looking at me and they know, and I'm an intelligent person, so they know I comprehend what you saying and I
Yeah.
understand what you saying. But what did you not hear? You feel me?
Yeah.
Why? If you just said what you just said, that means you had to miss everything I said. You
Yeah.
feel me? Like sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
what it be like because somebody be trying to be right and I don't be trying to be right. I be like, I just say what it is. Like I be like, the car went up the street. They be like, nah, the car was going slow up the street. I'm like, I don't care. The car just went up the street.
Yes. And look at so my whole point with why I have
Yeah.
brought up those pushbacks was that again, and you already said it in your state. So technically you never got rid of pride. You're still the thing is when you get rid of something, then that means it's not there again. So you have no awareness, it doesn't exist. And to me, that can also, again, like I said, I respect again what you said and what's been done, but I'm just giving it out to other people because some folks will think getting rid of pride is that it doesn't exist anymore. So it's
Oh
literally
yeah,
you don't
nah,
see the
nah.
other side. So the wholeness. When I speak
Fuck
about
nah.
having the wholeness
Hey,
side of that, yeah.
keeping it a bean. Hey, for anybody listening, hey man, that shit hard.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell y'all, man. First of all, for those who don't know me, like I live a different lifestyle. Okay, and like I live a life y'all probably want to live.
But
Like,
stop. All right, continue, bro.
but and it's to say like, yo, when they say all the money in the world cannot make you happy, man, that pride shit be just a man. When the pride involved, money don't even matter. Let me tell y'all that. Like
Mm.
pride is so dangerous. It's like, boy, you gotta work on it willingly every time it come up. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's service, you gotta be like, mm, to the point where it's just that not getting rid of it, but to the
Yeah.
point of just understanding when it tries to come up that your barrier is so strong, you
Mm-hmm.
the barrier and go back down. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
In that point, you find yourself being a lot calmer. Like I've been in that phase before where I was just a lot calmer. And right
Yes.
now, I'm gonna be honest, I still don't feel as calm as I could be. But I've been in that phase where I've been so calm because somebody could say something,
Yep.
it's all love, man.
Yeah.
I'm
And
talking about it cuss me
mm-hmm.
out. I'm like, hey man, I wish you the best in life. And I really mean it too. Like I don't even be just I know people that say that to get on people's nerves, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say it if I ain't feel like really saying that in a genuine way. You feel me? I'm not that
Yeah.
type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta
Exactly. You get
control. You
rid of
gotta
it,
You
you
don't
control.
get rid of
control
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
exactly.
you
Because
gotta
there's a
you gotta
difference
control.
between like
You gotta
pride and arrogance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because too much pride is arrogance, whereas too little pride is like low self-esteem, and you want to be more in the middle ground where you have pride in accomplishing a goal or
Yes.
receiving a reward or recognition. Like if you won a Grammy, right, or an Olympic gold medal or the Nobel Prize, then it's healthy to have pride in that, at least in that moment, be like, oh yeah, I'm proud of myself for winning this, you know, prize that so many people, are also, aiming for, I think that's like a healthy pride. Like, but when that gets in the way and becomes kind of blocks your a connection with people or your healthy relationships, that's when it becomes like an arrogance,
Yes.
right? It's no longer the healthy pride.
Yes. And I mean, with a lot of stuff, it is the whole idea of the balancing act again. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason why I like to bring a lot of this stuff into cases, because yes, people may see me always coming on here talking about some influential, positive, uplifting, or I'm gonna be able to do this, and we don't speak on a lot of negative or any other stuff of that course. Like again, we talked about before. You said the toxic positivity type of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
I bring that up because one, I've come to learn not only the both sides, but the multiple sides of how life and who
Mm-hmm.
you are as an individual. I was never this person before. Shoot, if y'all would have actually known a little bit more about me, I was one of the most rambunctious, disrespectful and loud little kids you would have probably ever met. But I still ended up having that whole idea. I wanted to give back and share and be nice and be kind, but it's just the way that I was brought up before didn't necessarily now fit to where I am now. It's because I've learned. Again, you go through those phases of learning. Whether it is I was in a bad place before and I was a different type of person that looked down on people and condescended and all of this stuff, but then you've grown
Mm-hmm.
to become this other side. But the thing is, you don't forget where you came from. You don't forget those
Mm-hmm.
experiences that happened. It now has become a part of you and who you are, your full makeup, and that's again, it's the balancing and controlling it. But go ahead, brother.
Real quick, I want to touch on K's point. He was like he was like too little pride creates low self esteem, and that's
Mm,
important that people understand that, because even when I say, you know, I ask Lord to take my pride away, it really just be like, you know, he know what I mean by that. You know, he know that it's gonna come up in certain situations, and he know me. I'm so strong willed that I'll be
mm.
like, you got me stuck. You feel me? But it's like I gotta learn how to just be like, I'm alright with that. You feel me? And
Yeah.
that's how,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's a But then if I was like that with every situation, like you said, that's why it's important that it would be like, you know, you think lower yourself. You feel me? I actually had to tell that to one of my shorties. You know, I told her, I was like, you know, I was like, hey, I don't think low of myself. You feel me?
Mm,
And I think sometimes a lot of times between guys and women, ego and pride is so dangerous because the other wants to be somebody wants to win, somebody wants to be right. What
mm-hmm,
I like to do, I be like, you win. If I see your pride come up, I'm like, you win.
mm-hmm.
The conversation could be cool, and as soon as I see that pride come in, I'm like, you win.
But
Because I'm
that's where
like,
it's not a conversation
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
at that point it's like you just want to be right. So that means anything that's further said after that, it probably gonna lead to an argument. Honestly, like you gotta really watch those type of things if y'all can self reflect and look at situations where pride became involved. You know,
Mm-hmm,
probably it became an argument or altercation of some sort because nobody wanted to just take that back seat and be like, you know what, you got it.
mm-hmm,
You know, sometimes that's necessary to avoid a lot further things. You know, but it's definitely like you said, man, you can't have too little of it. You know, like because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you're too nice, people feel like I feel like that's with me, and I'm not gonna speak on everybody, but specifically with me, when I'm too nice, I feel like people think I don't got that side of like, bro, I don't have to deal with this shit. You feel me? Like, but it's like because I'm so cool and because I'm so forgiving, and I'm like, nah, let's work. Let's people get that confused and be like, he just gonna do that. Like,
yeah.
okay, when he get to that point, he ain't doing that. It's like that shake him up right there, because then it's like, oh, you need to
Yeah.
reevaluate. You know?
Look, again, and this is again, we're not condoning, and I'm about to say right now, not condoning any type of violence or stuff, but just to play on some words. I can be a pacifist, but if it turns to that point, I could pacifist too. Like it at this point. Again, and earlier when Kunin was talking about too, when it came to a lot of the colonization of different countries and stuff, with a lot of not only natives, indigenous, and just folks within different cultures and tribes and stuff too, like violence was not the answer, the first type of answer. That was the last resort. So it doesn't mean that we
Exactly.
don't have it. We well equipped. I got the arms, but that doesn't mean that I always gotta bear those arms every single day so that you know that I'm ready for that
Hmm.
action. I can have it
Exactly.
concealed. Again, and see, that's when people come and try to test you, do all this other different stuff again. And those are folks who are trying again to find their way and find their path and figure their own self out at the same time.
Yes. Talk your shit. Yeah. Yeah. Yo, because it's like, yo, I've literally been trying to explain that to certain people lately, and it's been coming off to me. I'm like, I'm looking at it like, damn, like this person, this so I'm looking at it. I'm talking to God because I'm like, God did show me so much shit. Then I'm like, I'm looking at the stuff going on right now, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't question what I know, but I'm like, damn, you sure? But I'm looking at it because I'm like, this, they souls is so troubled and they lost. Like you said, like they have not yet when it's on that level, it's like your soul is lost. Like you're trying to find that part of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be in a space. Sometimes you need to be in solitude. But whatever gets you to that mode of, like I like to call it, the A.D.V.I.S.S phase.
Okay.
That that's the that's the mode. Like, yo, you have to, once you're broken, when you're in that realm of, like, like we just described, like those people that are lost. There's two things that those people need to see, because I was by the grace of God, for real. Like I was shown all type of mercy and patience, but they need to see those two things. I'm talking
Hmm.
about unconditional, like, yo, I'm talking about from a child. I'm not talking about just now. I'm talking about from a child. I've done things, and I'm like, yo, I was shown mercy, but I've also put my foot in the right direction as well. Like I did work on my end. I was never a bad kid.
Hmm.
I was respectful. I would respectfully tell you no and things like that when I felt like I didn't want to do things. It
Yeah.
wasn't like adults in my time growing up tried to make you feel like you ain't had no choice. I'm gonna let you know I'm human. I got a choice.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that mindset was cold to even have at that age. At a young
Mm.
age, they saw that within me. Like just looking at me like he don't stand up for the wrong. Nah, I fought because I was
Hmm.
attacked. I didn't fight because I wanted to go attack people. I don't do that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going out. I'm not walking out my
Hmm.
door to try to go look for somebody to go. Like, what kind of energy is that? You feel me? You fuck around and tell ass whoop. Like, then what? You gotta go home and reevaluate why you
Mm-hmm.
walked out with that mindset. Like,
But
why put yourself in that potentially situation? But it's important that when we see those lost souls, is my point. We gotta
mm-hmm.
show those misery souls. We can call them the misery souls. It's like we gotta show them patience, and we gotta
Mm-hmm.
show them mercy. Mercy and patience is what I've been learning. I feel like for the last 4 to 5 months, I've been learning mercy and patience, and just understanding to do it regardless if they think they deserve it or not. Whether what they did, the world might look at it like, hey man, whatever. Hey, I'm gonna give you mercy and patience. Why?
Mm.
Because like that's what God would do for you.
Mm.
If you want to get
Hmm.
yourself right, if you really want to move in the right direction, I'm gonna show you that. You feel me? I'm not no dummy. Like, if you don't want that, then we ain't got nothing to talk about. You feel me?
Yeah,
But I
I'm glad
feel
you
like,
spoke on that, bro. And I know I'm gonna definitely let you continue. I also want Kunin to jump in as well too. Um,
Hmm.
that's where I was actually going to go with a lot of this misery loves company is I was wanting us to talk about, how do we identify those folks and then what do we do to help combat that? And you're
Hmm.
already speaking those points into existence. But I also want to take the why misery loves company even deeper and make it even broader to how it connects into again the whole aspects of our emotions and the behaviors. This is just not only the whole idea that miserable people like to be miserable with other miserable people. This
hmm
expands out to how this becomes into different groupings. This is how we create different types of society, gangs, cultures, groups. Like you see how this becomes not only deeply rooted within society, but that also this is a part of just the human condition of us having our emotions, having to combat that against the logic, all the defense mechanisms that we have. But again, it stems back from why misery loves company. It goes deeper. Like I said, you find out the keys, you figure out how that applies to what you see outside of you, and then you start to use that, and now you know, oh, okay, that's why misery loves company. Because yo, when I kept seeing my homie always kept doing the same bad things, but the same bad, or quote unquote, again, we use bad and good to display stuff with all these labels of people doing those same things. There was no ending. Shout out to Kunin. There was no conclusion. There was no end at all. There's no resolution to end that story. It was just a continued
Hmm.
cycle. Again, we talk about breaking the cycles. And you see how I can go on and on with a lot of stuff you think is not truly connected to it, but it is, because they're all very similar concepts, but we just have different names and labels for them. But
Hmm.
before, again, I want us to go back through some points again on how we can combat this misery in it loving company, and then how can we promote folks being able to identify whether or not they're in those states. Because sometimes, yeah, we know that
Uh,
they're knowingly there, but then there's times where they've gotten to a point where if they dug themselves into a deeper hole to a point they don't know how to get out. So I want us to go into some
Hmm.
of that and then give our last thoughts, and then I'm gonna wrap up the show. But go ahead.
All right, before you do that, I also want to go back to your earlier point about violence as a last resort, not as a first response, but as a last resort.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, it's a real time collective thing that's happening right now because I come from Burma, or now known as Myanmar. My country of origin is the situation there has escalated into basically a civil war in the major cities themselves,
Mm.
right? Because of the military coup there. Now, there's been a civil war for like 6 decades with the military, but it's with the other ethnic groups in the other states, not in the main state
Yeah.
and in the major cities. Now, it's escalated into the major cities because the people are fed up, right? They've tried to get a peaceful transfer of power for over 3 decades.
Mm.
They've tried and they succeeded for 5 years. They had 5 years of a hybrid democracy. It's not even a real democracy, but they were like, okay, at least there's peace. And the military got greedy again, and they were not satisfied even with that partial power.
Hmm.
And they decided they wanted the 100% power back after they lost the election. And they were like, they staged a military coup in February.
Wow.
And at first, the
Mm-hmm.
people still tried to peacefully protest. They did civil disobedience movements, meaning a lot of the government workers or the formerly civilian government workers decided not to work anymore,
Mm.
not for the military, right? So that's the civil disobedience movements. But that's when the military started escalating with their at first with the water cannons and the tear gas, and then they started using rubber bullets and then real bullets, and they started shooting people, and 900 people are dead at this point, right? And so
Mm.
that's when the people started making their own homemade barricades, homemade guns, and homemade bombs, and started shooting back, and then started bombing their military facilities.
Yes.
Uh, because it was like they were left with no options. They were like, it's a very last resort. They have to take up arms and use violence back.
Mm. See, again, like you said, using it not as a first response, but a last resort.
Hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I'm glad you brought it back in because I know we spoke on it before, and I always appreciate you giving a lot of contextual information, not only outside of the U.S., but then just from your own experience and culture.
Yeah.
So, what y'all got when it comes to the signs, but also how to combat? Again, misery may not always necessarily, again, we can see it as a negative and how that goes, but how to combat the multiplying of the misery in multiple companies. So some signs of you seeing it, as well as how to combat it from not multiplying.
Well, it
Man,
goes back to what I said earlier, right? The storytelling, right? If they're
Mm,
telling the same story, there's nothing wrong with stories. We all need stories, right? But if they're telling the same story without an ending, without completing it,
yeah.
and they keep stopping in the middle and they go back to the beginning again and again, that cycle,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you know this person is a miserable uh, and I'm
pride,
not even talking about, advocating for toxic
pride.
positivity or things like that. I'm like, this person really is trying to like bring everybody down, and even they themselves might not realize it. I knew a person like that where she
Mm,
kept talking about escaping from a cult, right?
yeah.
And how she's still influenced by her trauma, and I can empathize with the trauma, but one other friend pointed out, you realize she's saying the same things over and over again, and there's no completion.
It
Mm-hmm.
becomes a, it becomes,
And
it
that's a
becomes a,
sign when there's no completion, there's no
Mm,
closure. And when you try to provide them with closure, they try to resist and go back into telling their incomplete story. That's a big sign. It's like if they're
mm,
telling an
yo,
incomplete
talk your
story over and
shit,
over
man.
again,
Talk that
like,
stuff, man. That's all right, man. For real. Hey, you just said something that I was explaining to somebody earlier. Like, I kid you not. Like, I literally was explaining that. Like, I said, yo, you either want to keep repeating this or like, I said, yo, it's no, like, yo, we can do this all day, but it's
yeah.
not, like I said, yo, you got to let your pride go, and this person cannot see that their
Hmm.
pride is in the way. And the reason why
Hmm.
we know when somebody's pride is in the way because they gonna lie to you. They gonna do things that seem weird. They gonna move a
mm,
certain way. Like they're gonna say certain things and they're gonna move a certain way. And then first and foremost, they gonna have to be right.
mm,
One of the
mm.
biggest signs. Some of them might not exhibit that, but most of them, 9 times out of 10, they gonna wanna be right. Oh, like it's just something that's just in them. It's like
Okay. Mm-hmm.
when you see that pride arise, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, the best way to go about it, just look at them. Like I like to look at them because when I look at them and
Ooh.
I don't say nothing, it make them think because they know I can talk. But if I
Yeah.
just look at them and then they like, you're not gonna say nothing, I'm like,
You know why? There's two. There's
oh,
2 points. There's 2 points, and I'm glad. The reason why I said "ooh" again is because you've already said it before. But when you said it again, it made me think of these two things of why you when you do that, what happens? One, you block off that transfer of their energy, so now they have to
Hmm.
sit with it. And the second thing
mm,
is you become
Hmm.
that mirror. So it's not like they even looking at you anymore. It's now they looking at their own self because you looking back at them, and they're like, "Fudge,
what
now I
did
got
I
to
just
deal with
say?
this."
What did I just say? Right? What did
Hmm.
I just like? It makes you like sometimes when you don't respond, it allows somebody to really listen to what they said and see if that made sense. Like
Yeah.
that's why the things
That's
that
why
I
it even helps to repeat to people exactly what they said back to them. Because
Mm,
sometimes people don't even hear themselves. Like they don't have the self-awareness. They're like subconsciously or even like kind of semi-unconsciously repeating the same thing over and over again. And they really don't even hear themselves. And you just repeat exactly what they said back to them and be like, did you just say this? And they're like, oh, huh,
Mhm.
I guess that doesn't make any sense at all. They realize it. Like,
My
that's why
thing is
questioning is
you gotta
great. That's why having strong
yeah.
questions is
Hmm.
and as
what
well as
about
follow up questions to do that. But go ahead, brother.
Hmm.
what about Prez that was in the live a little earlier? She popped in, she didn't say nothing, but she actually just told me that the other day. She was like, "Yo, D, you got a valid like you be asking some good ass questions. Like we've known each other for over 4 or 5 years, you feel me? But she's like within the time or span of us knowing each other, and sometimes she would get up about shit. Like she'll be a little frustrated, and like I won't say nothing to her. You feel me?
Mm,
Cool friend, like cool friend. Like it's just like we both do our thing. Like we got stuff going on. We moving, but
yes.
it just don't happen that we don't talk. But then it'll be like. I remember the first time that happened, and then I had got back to Cali. I tapped in with her, and most girls they would have got on the phone like, "Oh, who is this?" or like they don't know who, whatever. She was like, "Yo, what's up, D?" I was like, "Oh, that's what's up." Like that's when I realized she was free. You feel me?
Yeah.
Because I was like, she's not a really a prideful person like that. She do got pride, but I knew that she knew how to control it. You feel me?
Keep it in check.
Because she was just like, "Oh yeah, what's up?" And she actually told me that the other day. She was like, "Good questions. You have great questions, and sometimes you just be having me stuck." You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, she's low key a celeb. She's famous. You feel me? But she was like, we were talking about that one night. We was actually just smoking, and the book,
Mm,
beautiful questions, high. But we were smoking the other night, like a little while, a couple weeks back. We were smoking one night, and we always talk about our career paths. Like we like to let me and her. We really two people that really love to live in the moment. Like, don't ask me what I'm doing 3 days from now. Ask me,
mm,
you want to do something tonight? Let's do something. Like I could have an event, but I really don't know what the hell might happen on that day.
yeah.
But one of the things she mentioned, and I asked her a great question because she's always talking about fame and all that. I said, okay, you get that big time fame. I said, then what?
Mm-hmm.
And I was so serious when I said it. She had to just be like, and I knew she went into her brain, even though she didn't really have a response. She went
Yeah.
into her. That's somebody. When you see them do that, you can tell that you looking at somebody that ain't got too much pride. You feel me?
Yeah.
They not gonna put pride in the way because they gonna think. You feel me? Whether they like that question or not, they gonna think. They
Yeah.
not just gonna open their mouth and be like, "Well, shit, fame this and fame that." Like, hey,
Yeah.
I just said, then what?
That's why you open up that space. Like sometimes, as much as we want to answer a question, or sometimes we may not even have a response for it. But if you set that place for you give people that pausing and that thinking time to do so and be okay to sit in that silence while they figure that out, like that's more fruitful than just trying to just spitball and just say whatever just comes to mind just so that you can say whatever it is.
I'm
Um,
guilty. I want to
yes,
say that I'm guilty of definitely doing that. Like, as far as just laying it out there and just like telling them, you feel me?
yeah,
I'm definitely guilty of doing that, and that's why I want people to know, like, yo, sometimes your pride get in the way. Sometimes we do the things that we wouldn't want. Sometimes, that's why it's
yeah,
important that we able to identify that within ourselves, so we can look within others and see that same thing.
yes,
Especially it wasn't, when I reached this Adonis phase, though, it wasn't until I really understood how to correct myself. Like even the littlest thing. Like when I learned how to correct myself, well, I could see everything like with it. I was connecting with people. Like I was just, I broke two, three of my friends down in tears that day. You feel me? Like
mm,
that was the first day, like just really connecting with people. Like somebody, one of them, I wouldn't even really call her a friend. Like she's a friend, but it's like we haven't even known each other that long. We don't even talk like that. I'm talking about broke her down. Like,
mm,
but I feel like because when you become connected with yourself, you then become connected with the divine power. Like I said, when we let go of that excessive pride, we become
yes,
closer to God. The
mm,
more pride you
mm-hmm,
have, I feel like the more materialistic you are, the more you need all these other things to cover up and make yourself feel good.
yeah,
You need bodyguards so you can feel strong. You need all of this stuff. Man, God gave me what the hell He wanted me to have.
yeah,
I don't need enhancements. I don't need all that. Hey man, I got what I'm supposed to have. I'm thankful for it. Start being appreciative of what you got. Man, I seen
mm-hmm,
somebody with one arm. My daddy got a crooked little walk. You feel me? Like, bruh, come on, man. Like, we gotta start being more grateful. I feel like being
yeah,
grateful is part of letting your pride go. Because a lot of people that are prideful are really not grateful, and it just shows. They
mm,
don't know what the hell they think. What you think? A woman told me this: opinion and truth. That's what we got. We got an opinion and the truth. The
Mm-hmm.
truth don't got no feelings. The truth is just the truth. The truth is the fact. It's what happened. You feel
Mm-hmm.
me? Somebody can say they grateful all day. That is your opinion. You are not grateful.
Yeah.
Like you can convince yourself of that lie. But somebody that understands what gratefulness is,
Yeah.
like I'm grateful to be living here, like knowing where I came from growing up. I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful to be living in this type of house that I'm in. You feel me? Like, bro, what I grew up with roaches. Them niggas was my best friends. Like, for real, you feel me? And now I ain't seen a roach in I don't know how long. You feel me? Like, but it just goes to show, like, when you really want to better your lifestyle, you gonna start with yourself. You gonna stop attacking people. I feel like when you really want yourself to be better and you
Yeah.
become in touch with yourself, you gonna stop attacking people. You gonna be like, man, what the hell did I do? Cause
Yeah.
something in your life is gonna happen. Something. And a lot
Yes.
of people when this something happens, they still some of them are still so goddamn prideful. They be like, well, why did you do this? No, it ain't why did you nothing. Why what did I do? You feel me?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to ask the what did I do question. Like nobody wants to sit there and say, what did I do? Like I had to really sit there and yell it out like, what did I do? You feel me?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Because
brother.
I need to know where like I just said, like I did that before where I'm just spitting facts at somebody, but it's like I wasn't giving them that time to
Process.
sit within that
Mm-hmm.
information. Because
Mm-hmm.
I do give vast knowledge and information, I have to understand that what I'm giving is a lot sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
and it's important. Like we could, you
Wait, is
we
your flashing light, is that a filter or is it a,
Oh,
uh,
that's
is it part of,
probably part
no,
of the
not
phone.
you,
No, I know, I know. It's
not you,
probably a
Dallas.
phone. Yeah, it's probably Dallas. It's part of. It's probably his background. He probably got the TV or something on right now.
oh yeah, the TV
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had a feeling. Look, look. I'm gonna let you. I want you to continue. But what I want to do at this point as well with it is, I want y'all to give your final thoughts on either of all the topics, and then I'm gonna wrap it up with some announcements, and then of course end with my wrap up. But go ahead, Dallas. I'm gonna let you do it since you were still on there, and then Kundin, I'll let you finish it then.
No, go ahead, Cody.
Huh?
Go
So
ahead.
wrapping up. So your final thoughts on either Misery Loves Company, Self Fulfilling Prophecies, all of that.
Okay. No, the reason why I asked is because I don't have epilepsy, but I do have issues with flashing lights sometimes. It gives me a
Oh,
headache.
got
So
you.
that's like, so, but also some people can get epileptic seizures from flashing lights and stuff like that. So just to be aware of that,
Got
in
you.
case other people, you have other people with such issues who come on.
Very true.
So
Thank you for letting me know.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah.
What up, chill? Yeah, yay.
Yeah, but go ahead,
We
Kundi.
wrap we wrapping up right now, Tim.
Final
But we was
thoughts
just talking
on
about.
why misery loves company?
Oh, yeah. Your final again final thoughts because I'm wrapping up. We're already probably about to go to 3 hours this time, but go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, and just to have that balance again, right? Like not to not to go into like toxic positivity and censoring everything everyone says,
Yeah.
but also to be aware of when people are not really telling a real story, but telling a broken loop over and over again
Mm,
that doesn't have any closure. Like to be aware when someone is doing that. That's one kind of person.
Question, Cody.
And then there is a second type of person who is worse than that, who's more of the narcissistic manipulator, right?
mm,
Who deliberately uh, will tell like miserable stories or bully you and then pretend to be a victim. It's known as reverse victimhood.
yeah.
You know, people like that, or even people like that guy in Wedding Crashers who crashes funerals to sleep with women.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those two types of people to be aware of them. The second type is worse because they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
The other type may not be doing it on purpose. They're just not aware that they're going through a loop
Mm,
themselves, you see. So
yes.
you might want to interrupt their loop and point it out for them gently, right? And
Yeah.
with empathy, as gently as you can.
Yes.
But if they're still, perpetuating the loop, then you might want to stay away from them because you're not their therapist and they need real therapy. They need a real therapist, not a
Yes.
friend.
Yes. I know you had a question, Dallas. Do you remember it that you had for Kunin?
Yeah, Condon, I wanted to know what is something that you think is a good thing that or something a more positive approach to somebody that you see is repeating that type of thing, as far as like you see them repeating themselves and and you can sit back and listen to this person and even listening to them, you know, like what is something that besides listening to them and not saying nothing do you think could help with that type of as far as understanding to get the other side to
Yeah.
perceive and see something.
Sometimes just repeating to them exactly what they said, like I said earlier, helps because one, they might never have felt heard before, and two, they might not even be hearing themselves. So making them aware of what they're actually saying helps them interrupt their own loop and be like, I heard you say this. Am I right? Right?
Mm,
And you might even give an excuse like, I'm just repeating to make sure that I heard it right, to make sure that you feel heard. I
Mm,
just heard you say this, and you repeat exactly what they said, and they might be like, oh, that might be a light bulb moment for them. Be like, oh, I wasn't aware that I was, saying this.
mm. There it is, brother. Any closing thoughts, Mr. Chairman Dallas?
mm. Hey man, y'all gave out some beautiful gems. Honestly, y'all, man, I feel like the universe is be telling me when to tap in. Like, it's no
Mm.
coincidence that the things y'all talking about was things that I'm already. Hey man, I'm just saying the world be talking, man. Y'all gotta tap in, and you gotta stay in a part of yourself, and that's what's going to allow you to be connected. Cause I'm not gonna hold you. If I didn't get on here, I would still was gonna smoke, and I'm still gonna smoke, but you know. Um, but it was like I was just in this phase where I didn't want to speak to nobody, you feel me? But then I get on here and able to speak with, some dope brothers, and share my experience, to let y'all know that when you are tapped in with the divine power, it is no coincidence. Like y'all hear my story of stuff I'm telling things that I personally go through, and for them to be on this same type of topic and saying the things that that's
Yeah.
my, that's to me that's always mind blowing when we can experience something like that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm grateful for things like that. I'm gonna work on that too. Try to approach it with that. Cause I want to be silent first, and then if I see that I don't get nowhere, I'm definitely gonna try to repeat an approach because maybe that is something that this person's just not hearing. Like every time they repeat themselves, I'm gonna repeat it. See if they
Mm.
catch on.
There it is, my G. Um, Before I wrap up on my stuff too, quick announcements for everything. First announcement is we have two more episodes left for What's the Word Wednesdays for this season. So our season finale episode will be on the 29th of this month, and we'll be taking a month to a half a month break before we continue on with the next season. So for those who are going to be looking forward to that, it'll be out somewhere around in February for season 3 of What's the Word Wednesdays. Next announcement is
Congratulations.
I will be on Saturday. I just thought in my head right now. On Saturday, I'm also going to do an update video of letting y'all know about the drops that I'm having, as well as the same thing, reiterate what's going on with the content and stuff that I am sharing and doing. So Just know that is to come for Saturday. I will have an update and I'll do it live. So this will be a live video of me sharing the updates of what I got. Okay. Other than that, that was all these the announcements. But to wrap up, again, as always, I appreciate y'all so much for coming in and sharing your thoughts and sharing your time. So thank you, Dallas. Thank you, Kunden. Thank you to everybody who was in the comments who also came on to come and share and be a part of this experience as well as this community as we talk these things out and come to realizations, or maybe come out and say, well, you're annoying as heck, but I still love you regardless, and all of those different things. Okay. Now, to wrap up this whole conversation,
No
when it
coincidences.
comes to, yeah, when it comes to current events, again, I reiterate it so much because I want y'all to know it's important that you take the time to be well informed of what's going on around you so that you can have an appropriate plan to not only protect yourself, but the others that are around you. I've shared stories. There's been situations in my environment that people are getting shot and other things of that nature. If you don't take the time to do these things, you never know what else can be out there. I'm not saying be scared of everything. Just be ready and ready to go. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Second, when it comes to self-fulfilling prophecy, it's what Kundin, a lot of us was ended up saying. It's a perpetual cycle that we continue to use as a crutch, but ends up crippling us at the end of the day. When we look at a self-fulfilling prophecy, it's a belief. We put in that energy into that belief, whether if it could be something that could help promote us, but most of the time the self-fulfilling prophecy is something that also damages us so much. So be mindful of what you're putting your beliefs and your energy into so that you don't continue to have a cycle going on of something that breaks you down. And lastly, when it comes to why misery loves company, you have to be mindful, one, of that energy, what misery is, what that brings, and why are you feeling miserable, and why do you want to bring folks that are also in that same feeling? Is it just like the proverb was saying, do you want to share in, or you want to help lessen that burden, or are you over here to multiply that burden like stink meter? And if that is the case, what are the signs of those folks who do those things? Be aware of those signs and then find ways for you to combat, if not come to understand why you feel that misery, or why you feel that pride, or why you feel that pain. But other than that, y'all, this has been another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays. I've been your brother A.D.V.I.S.S. This has been Dallas as well as Kunden. Shouts out to y'all. Thank y'all for
You doing
coming
the after show?
through. Huh?
You doing the after show or not?
Nah, not this time.
Okay.
Man, thank you to all of those who came through and shared other times. Shout outs to those who are gonna be watching this now as well as later. On Instagram and YouTube. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to your boy at A.D.V.I.S.S Speaks, and don't forget to like, comment, and share, as well as hit the notification bell because there'll be more videos like this coming out like we usually do. But other than that, y'all, we'll catch y'all next time for another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays. Much
Yes,
love to
sir.
everybody, and see y'all next time. Peace and love. We're out.